Chapter 1431. Humans were a strange species. Sometimes, people could know each other for years, but they were like strangers. They could sleep in the same bed every day, but they could not understand each other's hearts. Some people were meeting for the first time. They only exchanged a few words, but they felt like they were bosom friends for years. Luli and Pan were like this. For Luli, there was something special about this young lady of the Pan family. She could make people feel close to her and trust her. She could make people lower their guard and forget that she was a beauty. There was a tacit understanding and an instinctive closeness when they talked. This had nothing to do with romantic feelings. It was more like heroes appreciating each other, or birds of the same feather. As far as Pan was concerned, she was more curious about Luli at first. She knew Luli's information very well. He was a talented warrior that had ascended to the immortal world for less than 10 years. He rose so quickly. More importantly, he dared to fight against the craftsman's sect. This was something that many people, including Pan Wong, dare not to do. But Luli did it, and he did it beautifully. He slapped the craftsman's sect in the face, waved his hand, and left. He snuck into the land of Yuyan. The four forces were the sworn enemies of the 9 masters of the land of Yuyan and countless warriors of the land of Yuyan. Many people and families had fled to the land of Yuyan because they were forced by the 4 super forces to the point where they could no longer stay in the God Realm. Many people dreamed of killing their way back to the God Realm and destroying the 4 super forces. Of course, it was just a dream. Nobody had the ability or the guts to do it. For many people, Luli had done what they were afraid to do. If Luli's identity was revealed, he would become a celebrity at the land of Yuyan and a guest of the 9 masters' residences. It was because of Luli's fame that Pan regarded him as an equal. She even felt that Luli was more powerful than her. That was why she asked Yikai for a 30% discount. If it were not for the fact that she was afraid that Luli would misunderstand, she would have given it to Luli. Of course, Pan admired Luli for spending hundreds of millions of divine sources to save a pet. She had seen many cold-blooded and heartless people who only cared about their own interests. It was rare to see someone as sincere as Luli. Respect, curiosity, admiration, and Luli's charisma made Pan let her guard down. She felt a natural closeness to him. Maybe it was because Luli was still young that Pan was not so restrained. That was why they could have such a conversation. After the two of them looked at each other and smiled, they didn't say anything. However, they didn't feel embarrassed at all. Instead, he seemed to be able to understand what the other party wanted to say with just a glance. This feeling was very strange to both of them. Neither of them tried to break this strange feeling and just sat there quietly. Until the restriction of a room was touched, Pan immediately covered her face with a veil and walked to the door, wanting to close the restriction. At the door, she stopped. She took out a token, handed it to Luli, and said, "Young Master Lu, this is my token. Consume it and focus your mind on it. Then, you can send a short message to me. If there's anything you need my help with, just let me know." Luli held the beautiful jade talisman in his hand, feeling it was quite heavy. He was touched that the young lady from a big family trusted him so much. They had just met, and they had only exchanged a few words. There is no need for thanks between friends. Luli took over the token, looked into Pan eyes sincerely, and said, "Lady Pan, if you need anything in the future, just send me a message. As long as I can do it, I will not say no." Pan nodded. To save a pet, Luli was willing to pay 500 million divine sources. He was a man of his heart. He would keep his word. Opening the inhibition formation, Yikai was standing outside. He cupped his fists and said, "Lady Qin, young Master Lu, the pet is being treated. Patriarch Tion said it will wake up soon." Li's eyes glowed. He put on a mask and walked out in excitement. He looked over. The white-eyebrowed old man had just fed Little White some elixir. Then, his hand glowed in green as if he was helping Little White. Luli didn't see the elixir, so he didn't know what it was. Of course, Luli would have accepted it even if it were just some average elixir instead of ice grass. He didn't care about anything as long as Little White could come back to life. Luli waited on the side, nervously, and Pan stood on the side quietly. After an hour, Little White suddenly moved and opened its eyes. Little White, Luli shouted in surprise. Hearing Luli's voice, Little White opened its eyes and stared at Luli. It bounced up and jumped into Luli's arms. Ha 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 ha. Luli laughed out loud, seeing Little White kissing him in excitement and affectionate. His face and clothes were covered in saliva. There were tears in his eyes. Little White was a friend that grew up with him and saved his life many times. To Luli, Little White was like his own brother. How could he not be excited when his own brother finally woke up after years of sleep? Ye Kai waited for Luli and Little White to be intimate for a while before he took out a ring and said, "Young Master Lu, these are the mystical materials you wanted. They are all in there. Please check." Luli nodded. He took over the ring and checked with psychic power. Making sure that the number was correct, he asked, "How much divine source do you want?" Ye Kai looked at Pan and said with a smile, "Young Master Lu, just 200 million divine source will do." 200 million? Luli was surprised. Previously, one set of materials would cost 60 to 70 million divine source. 5 sets would be more than 300 million divine source. Now, 200 million was an even lower discount. He glanced at Pan Yuqin. Pan Yuqin had a faint smile in her eyes and did not say much. Luli didn't argue. He took out the divine source and handed it to Ye Kai. Cupping his fists, he said, "Lady Qin, Chief Steward Yi, there's a long way to go. We will meet again. I have something to do. I have to go." Pan Yuqin didn't ask him to stay. She nodded and said, "Young Master Lu, you must come back when you have time. You can go to Ye Kai directly. He will bring you to me." "Okay." Luli only said one word. Then, he cupped his fists again and left with the maid. Ye Kai didn't see Luli out. He asked Patriarch Tian and the others to leave before he asked, "Lady Qin, why do you think so highly of this person? Is he really that person? His information must not be leaked." Pan Yuqin ordered in an unusually firm tone. "Even the family can't report it. Don't ask too much. Tell Elder Tian and everyone that this person's information is top secret. Anyone who dares to leak it will be killed." "Yes." Chapter 1432. Luli took Little White back to the castle and played with it for almost an hour. Then Luli took out the materials on the ground and asked Little White, "Little White, what kind of materials do you like? Take whatever you like." Little White's diet was special. It ate soul crystals and it absorbed thunderbolts. Luli did not know what Little White would eat. He took out many materials and let Little White eat them. Squeak, squeak, Whitey jumped up happily and then pounced into a pile of divine materials. It looked left and right and sniffed. Its little paws flipped through the divine materials. There were many divine materials that it was not interested in, and it directly flipped them over. Squeak, squeak. All of a sudden, Little White found a white crystal. It took a few bites and squealed in excitement. It swallowed the crystal in a few bites. Cloud crystal. Luli recognized this material. It was not a rare or average crystal. Each crystal would cost more than a dozen divine sources. If Little White could eat 100 a day, it would cost more than 1,000 divine sources. Here you go. Luli put all the cloud crystals aside and checked carefully. There were over 1,000 of them. He asked, "Little White, do you like these stones?" Whitey glanced at the pile of god materials and even looked around. In the end, it still held onto the cloud crystal with its little paws and refused to let go. "Okay, eat as much as you want." Luli waved his hand and asked a maid to buy 30,000 cloud crystals. Hundreds of thousands of divine sources were nothing to Luli. As long as Little White was happy, Luli would not even bat an eyelid if Little White could eat millions of divine sources. The maid went to ask Ye Kai. Ye Kai gave Luli 30,000 cloud crystals without hesitation. The cloud crystals were not valuable, so Ye Kai was doing Luli a favor. Pan Yuqin had saved Luli hundreds of millions of divine sources with just a few words. Hundreds of thousands of divine sources were nothing. When everything was done, Luli went to Yuan Shangchang and told her that they could set off at any time. He had bought the materials. Yuan Shangchang was afraid that a long delay would bring trouble. She decided to set off at once. After all, the sooner the formation of dragons was built, the safer the heaven-breaching valley would be. The headquarters of the heaven-breaching palace was in the heaven-breaching valley. The four of them left the city and rode on the phoenix chariot. Luli boarded the chariot and went to the cabin. He even activated the inhibition formation. After playing with Whitey for a while, Whitey fell asleep after eating over 100 cloud crystals. It had just woken up, so its body was still weak. Now that it had swallowed so much energy, it naturally needed to digest it. It would take 7 or 8 days to get to the heaven-crushing palace, and that was under the condition of riding a flying wand. However, this proved that the heaven-crushing palace was not too far from King Pan City. Luli continued to cultivate in secluded cultivation. He studied the spatial strangulation killer move while cultivating divine power and strengthening his soul. His god power cultivation speed was a bit slow, but his soul cultivation speed was very fast. That was because the medicinal pills he was currently using were used by the almighty experts of the god world. Those were the highest grade medicinal pills, and the strength of his soul was rising rapidly. 7 or 8 days passed by in the blink of an eye. Outside, Yuan Shangchang had triggered the inhibition formation. Luli had no choice but to get out. The flying phoenix arrived outside a huge valley. This valley was much bigger than the Valley of Artifacts. There were 3 towering peaks on 3 sides. In front of the valley, there was a wall that was thousands of feet tall. The entire valley was estimated to be thousands of miles wide. From afar, there were castles, pavilions, and manors. There were also many towering trees. The scenery was very beautiful. The heaven-crushing palace. Above the city gate, there were 3 glistening characters. On the city wall, there were rows of warriors in shiny armors. All of these indicated the strength of the heaven-crushing palace. Creak, creak, the city gate was opened. An old man in a luxurious robe with a long beard came out with a group of people. Outside the city gate, dozens of warriors dropped to one knee at once and shouted, "Greetings, Deputy Master! Greetings, Patriarchs!" At this moment, Luli, Yuan Shangchang, and the others were getting off the Flying Phoenix. He took a look at the old man in the luxurious robe and was taken aback. The heaven-crushing palace was good at wooing people. Even the Deputy Master came out to greet them. This man was obviously a super mighty warrior in the divinity. Also, he came with more than a dozen patriarchs. Yuan Shangchang walked over with Lu Li and the others. Yuan Shangchang smiled from a distance. She walked over and said with respect, "Nice to meet you, Master Lu and patriarchs." The 2 patriarchs next to Lu Li bowed as well. Yuan Shangchang then introduced, "Grandmaster Lu, this is Lu Changhe, the Deputy Master of the Heaven-Crushing Palace. Master Lu, this is Lu Lin, the Grand Master of the Massacre Shrine." "Thank you, Shang." Lu Changhe nodded and looked at Lu Li with a smile. Lu Li knew how to behave himself since he was being courteous. He cupped his fists and said politely, "Nice to meet you, Master Lu." "Ha ha ha." Lu Changhe laughed out loud. He stroked his beard and said, "Grandmaster Lu, you are so young and you are already a master. You are a young talent. The younger generation will surpass us in time." Lu Changhe's attitude was good, but the patriarchs behind him were not happy because Lu Li was wearing the silver fox mask and he didn't salute them. Their faces became a little gloomy, but since Lu Changhe was here, no one dared to say anything. Lu Changhe didn't mind these details. He walked over, took Lu Li's hands and said, "Grandmaster Lu, please. Our master is waiting for you. He has specially prepared a banquet to welcome you." "Thank you for your hospitality," Lu Li replied with a tone that was neither overbearing nor humble. He was on guard against this bunch of old guys. They were using such an obvious way to rope him in. It seemed that the heaven-breaching palace had taken a fancy to his ability and formations and wanted to rope him in. Lu Li was just a grandmaster of a middle-rank force. His abilities were not bad, and he could kill some mighty warriors in the divinity. But to the super mighty warriors in the divinity, such abilities were nothing. They could defeat him with a flip of their hands. Unless the heaven-breaching palace knew his real identity, why else would they send a deputy master to welcome him? There was only one explanation. The heaven-breaching palace wanted to recruit him and have him join them. If it were before, Luli might consider joining a force. But now he gave up on this idea. He felt at home in the massacre shrine. He could not abandon a group of people to join other forces. What was more, even if Luli wanted to join a force, he would not join a force like the heaven-breaching palace. There were supreme forces above him and the forces of the 9 immortal kings. How could he join the heaven-breaching palace? Therefore, his attitude was neither too good nor too bad. He did not want to offend the heaven-breaching palace. Of course, if the heaven-breaching palace wanted to mess around, Luli would not mind using some wrath of thunder to level the heaven-breaching palace to the ground. The heaven-breaching palace was huge. There were many warriors here. As soon as Luli entered, he noticed many people were secretly using psychic power to check on him. Many people were secretly peeping at him. Everyone was curious and confused. Who was Luli? Why did Lu Changhe come to welcome him in person? After several turns, they arrived at the depth of the valley. Finally, they arrived at a beautiful palace made of white jade. Outside stood rows of warriors and maids. It was quite an imposing scene. Lu Changhe showed Luli into the palace. At first glance, Luli saw a lady sitting on a throne made of ice. What surprised him was not that. The master of the heaven-breaching palace was a lady. It was that this lady looked very much like Yuan Shangchang. They were practically the same, but Luli could tell that this lady was much younger than Yuan Shangchang. Chapter 1433. Yuan Yu's simple words gave Luli a lot of information. Yuan Yu and Yuan Shangchang were half-sisters of the same father, but of different mothers. It seemed that they were not close. Yuan Yu was as powerful as a super mighty warrior in the divinity. That being said, she was not as powerful as Lu Changhe. Therefore, the reason why Yuan Yu could be in this position was either because her father had passed the position to her, or she had some special means. Either way, for a lady to be the master of a major force, and to have a stable position, there must be something going on. This Yuan Yu was not a simple person. Luli cupped his fists and said, "Nice to meet you, Master Yuan. Grandmaster Lu, please don't stand on ceremony." Yuan Yu waved her hand, pointed to the first golden table on the left, and said, "Young Master Lu, please take a seat. We are honored that you have spared no effort to come all the way to the Broken Heaven Palace. Please take a seat." Yuan Yu never stood up, even though she was smiling. The power of a master of a major force was overwhelming. Luli could feel her kindness and enthusiasm, but he dared not to belittle her. This woman is indeed a formidable character, Luli thought to himself. He walked to a seat and sat down. Lu Changhe sat on the right side of the table, and Yuan Shangchang sat next to Luli. After the patriarchs took their seats, a group of dancers came in and began to dance in the hall. Next to Luli knelt a maid. Luli could tell that she was a powerful immortal. The dancers were all immortals as well. Their dresses were revealing. Underneath the thin veil, Luli could see the pink belly bands. It was very tempting. "Grandmaster Lu, here's to you." Yuan Yu raised her goblet. The others stood up. Luli had to pick up his goblet, exchange some pleasantries, and then he drank up. Many toasted him. Luli did not say no. He was not afraid of getting drunk or that the Broken Heaven Palace would mess around. Before the formation of dragons was built, Yuan Yu would only do something to him if she was out of her mind. What was more, Yuan Yu was trying to recruit him. The more than a dozen patriarchs drank up one goblet each. Yuan Shangchang raised her goblet again and again. Her eyes were filled with seduction. It was as if she wanted to devour Luli. On the other side, Yuan Yu was much more reserved. She sat on the ice throne, and her snow-white skin seemed a little cold under the candlelight. It also gave people a strong desire to conquer her. She was a super almighty being of the immortal world, the leader of a high-rank force. Her life force was still very young. and her appearance and figure were perfect. A black belt was tied around her waist, revealing her slender waist and towering twin peaks. No matter what, Yuan Yu could arouse a man's strong desire to conquer her. Imagining a deity world's super almighty, a high-rank force's palace mistress, moaning and moaning under their bodies, many men would feel a strong sense of pleasure. So did Lu Li. He would glance at Yuan Yu from time to time without any scruples. He would raise his goblet to toast from time to time. Yuan Yu could sense Lu Li's eyes, but she remained calm. She was neither angry nor too close. There was nothing wrong with her manners. Lu Li was doing this on purpose. He was not a pervert, nor was he bold enough to want to conquer Yuan Yu. He was doing this to protect himself, or to give Yuan Yu a false impression that he could be recruited and that there was a possibility that he could join the Heaven-Breaching Palace. Once Yuan Yu had this idea, then he would be safe. As long as he did not refuse to join the Heaven-Breaching Palace completely, he would be safe. He had the Void Traverser and the Wrath of Thunder. However, the Heaven-Breaching Palace had two super almighty warriors in the divinity. On the off chance that he was ambushed, he could be killed in an instant. He had thought about this on his way here. It was easy to earn divine sources, but he had to be alive to spend them. Therefore, along the way, he had expressed his goodwill to Yuan Shangchang, indicating that she could consider joining the Heaven-Breaching Palace. Now, he was expressing his goodwill again. Yuan Yu would think about how to recruit him, not how to kill him. All right, Grandmaster Lu, you must be tired. Let me show you to have some rest. You can stay in the Heaven-Breaching Valley for a couple of days, and then build the formation. Yuan Yu left after she was full. Before she left, she threw a glance at Lu Li. She grinned, and there was a hint of love in her eyes. Lu Li's heart skipped a beat. The two sisters are not good people, Lu Li murmured to himself. Yuan Yu was flirting with him. She was giving him a feeling that he had a chance, but it was difficult to do so. This was a common tactic used by many women. They would stay at a distance, and they would look cold and aloof. Then, all of a sudden, they would flirt with you. You would feel like a cat was scratching at your heart. But when you tried to approach them and take your relationship to the next step, they would fly away like butterflies, not giving you any chance. Yuan Shangchang showed Lu Li to a side hall at the back of the palace. This side hall was elegant and had a nice environment. In the corner, there was some kind of strange incense, filling the room with a light fragrance. Grandmaster Lu, do you want to take a bath? I can scrub your back for you. A hand was placed on Lu Li's shoulder. A soft and hot body pressed against him. Yuan Shangchang's voice sounded next to Lu Li's ears. Her breath was on Lu Li's neck, which was very seductive. Lu Li was not a virgin. He was not affected at all. He moved to the side, turned around, and said with a smile, Patriarch Yuan, you must be tired. You should rest early. Master Yu has toasted me too much tonight. I'm still in a daze. Let's talk about it tomorrow. Lu Li was skillful with his words. He was indirectly indicating that he was not interested in Yuan Shangchang and that he wanted Yuan Yu to accompany him. He was indirectly stating that he wanted to recruit Yuan Shangchang. Yuan Shangchang was not enough. But if Yuan Yu could accompany him, then it would not be a big problem as a master of a palace. How could she sleep with someone so easily? What was more, Lu Li was only a mighty warrior in the divinity. What was more, if Lu Li was recruited, he would be Yuan Yu's subordinate. If a master were to sleep with her subordinate, she would not have any prestige left. Therefore, Lu Li was sure that Yuan Yu would not give herself up so easily. That way, he would have enough time to stall for time. When the formation of dragons was set up and the rest of the divine source was acquired, he could leave at once. All right, Grandmaster Lu, rest early. Yuan Shangshang's expression was a little unnatural. She said coldly and turned to leave. It was normal for Lu Li to refuse her, but he mentioned Yuan Yu. This must have upset her. Lu Li did not take a shower. After he used divine energy to get rid of the smell of alcohol, he sat on the bed and began to cultivate. On the other side, Yuan Shangchang walked out, turned a few corners, and entered a beautiful castle. Yuan Yu was sitting quietly inside. When she saw Yuan Shangchang coming in, she frowned slightly and asked, "You didn't start?" Yuan Shangchang shook her head slightly and sighed sourly. This brat has very high standards. He doesn't even like me. Chapter 1434. The next day, Luli was not in a hurry to build the formation. Instead, he wandered around the heaven-breaching valley with Yuan Shangchang and some patriarchs. To build a formation, he must first have a good understanding of the terrain, where the formation stone should be placed and every formation pattern should be calculated. Last time, he failed to build the Heavenlock formation at Kunlun Mountain. If he failed, he would have to pay tens of millions of divine sources. Luli could not afford to be careless. Luli took notes and wandered around. He had a general idea of the situation in the heaven-breaching palace. There must be at least tens of thousands of warriors here. There were at least a dozen strange places in the valley where there were herbs and spiritual herbs. Luli even found several caves by the side of the valley. There were powerful restrictions on the outside, and several warriors were guarding the caves. Luli wondered what was inside. Many people of the heaven-breaching palace were curious about Luli. The day before, Vice Master came to greet him in person. Today, several patriarchs showed up in the valley with him. What surprised him the most was that Luli's energy was not strong. He was only an immortal on the list. How could he be treated with such respect? Was he a young master from Superforce? Luli wandered around for a day. Then, he went back to his room and began to write and draw. He sketched out the formation eyes, patterns and lines according to the terrain of the heaven-breaching valley. He busied himself for a full day and 2 nights before he stopped sketching. He did not immediately set up the array formation. Instead, he began to lead Yuan Shangchang around the valley, round and round, for a full 2 days. Then, he went back to continue writing and drawing. Actually, it was not so troublesome. Luli had already built the Heavenlock formation before. He was experienced. If he could do it quickly, he could start in a day at most. He was trying to give the heaven-breaching palace a false impression. This formation was powerful and difficult to build. Things that were easy to get would not be cherished. The more frivolous you were, the less people would value you. If you valued yourself enough, others would pay more attention to you. In other words, if you looked down on yourself, how could others think highly of you? Luli rested for a night after he was done. Early in the morning the next day, he sent out a message that the formation could be built. But he needed absolute silence, and nobody could disturb or disrupt the formation. Otherwise, he would not be responsible if the formation failed. Yuan Yu took this matter very seriously. She ordered all of the elders to gather the heaven-crushing palace's disciples in a few places. They couldn't come out without orders. If they disturbed the formation, they would be killed. Fearing that some warriors would make trouble, Yuan Yu sent all the warriors away. She asked Lu Changhe and the patriarchs to keep an eye out for Luli in case something went wrong. At the same time, Yuan Yu stayed with Luli in person. Of course, she had an ulterior motive. She had done some research on inhibition formations, and she wanted to learn something from Luli. If he wanted to set up the formation, he had to break it first. The sky-breaking valley originally had a great array, and it looked pretty good. Of course, it was far inferior to the 10,000 Dragons Sky Lock Great Array. Based on Luli's experience, this formation could only withstand attacks from a dozen super mighty warriors in the divinity for 10 days or half a month. First, Luli stood on the city wall at the entrance of the valley. Yuan Yu was there to protect him. In the distance, Lu Changhe and more than a dozen patriarchs were on guard. Palace Master Yuan, pointing to the semi-transparent shield outside, Luli said, "I have to crack your formation so that I can build another one. Otherwise, the 2 formations will be in conflict." "Look, crack it?" Yuan Yu frowned. Soon she understood. 2 formations of different attributes would be in conflict. By then, both formations would be ineffective. She thought about it and asked, "How troublesome is it to crack the formation? How about I have someone turn off the formation and dig out all the formation stones? In this way, you won't be affected. Why do you have to go through so much trouble?" Luli smiled. A ray of divine energy glowed in his hand. He pointed to the void in front of him. A ray of white divine energy flew out and went into the shield. Buzzing, Yuan Yu, Lu Changhe, and the others turned pale with fright. The translucent barrier above the heaven-breaking valley suddenly shone brightly. It was so bright that many people couldn't even open their eyes. Immediately after, the formation burst like a bubble under the sun and disappeared in the sky. Bang, 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 bang. At the same time, the formation stones that were originally buried in the formation exploded one by one. Moreover, they exploded in an orderly manner, following a sequence. Many places could feel the ground tremble slightly. All of the formation lines and formation cores had disappeared. The heaven-breaking valley's protective formation had been completely destroyed in front of everyone's eyes. What is going on? What is it? Is there an enemy attack? I don't know. The patriarchs didn't give the order. Don't move. Master and the patriarchs are on the city wall. The sky-breaking valley was in turmoil. Luckily, there were leaders there. Yuan Yu and the others were here. Nobody dared to move. Yuan Yu and the others didn't pay attention to the disciples' words. They were all stunned. Even Yuan Yu and Lu Changhe, who were sophisticated, were stunned. One finger to crack the formation. The formation of the sky-breaking valley was called Dragon Formation. It had been in existence for tens of thousands of years. Back then, an old master asked a formation master to build it at a high price. Over the tens of thousands of years, the formation was attacked many times, and it was cracked 3 times. In the end, it had to be repaired by a formation master. It was clearly recorded in the palace that the formation could withstand attack from more than a dozen super mighty warriors for 10 days or half a month every time. The fastest time it had ever been broken was more than 3,000 years ago, when 15 almighties of the divine world and tens of thousands of martial artists spent 9 days smashing it open. The formation was not strong. But to Yuan Yu and the others, it was a good one. Now, Lu Li cracked it with 1 finger. Also, Lu Li was only as strong as an immortal on the list. His comprehensive abilities seemed to be stronger than the average mighty warriors in the divinity. Yuan Yu had a clear understanding of Lu Li's move. It was just an external release of divine energy. There was no special fundamental principle or killing move in it. Yuan Yu, Lu Changhe, and the others were shocked by the huge gap between them, and they were shocked quite badly. If it were not for the fact that Lu Li didn't look like a supreme warrior, they would have wondered if Lu Li was a supreme warrior in the divinity. He cannot be a supreme warrior in the divinity. Yuan Yu was sure of this. She had collected information about supreme warriors in the land of Yuyan and even in the divinity. The most important thing was Lu Li's breath of life. If Lu Li was a supreme warrior in the divinity, he would have caused a sensation in the divinity. Since he was not a supreme warrior in the divinity, there could only be one explanation. Lu Li's study of formations had reached a horrifying level. He had found a flaw in the formation of dragons and cracked it with 1 finger. He is a genius. Yuan Yu had some knowledge about formations as well. But compared to Lu Li, she felt she was like a child learning martial arts and a master. She looked at Lu Li with passion, as if she was looking at a peerless sword. That was right, a sword. As far as Yuan Yu was concerned, Lu Li was a sharp sword. If she could make use of him, it would be a piece of cake for her to attack other forces in the future and to crack the enemy's formation. If Lu Li could build some other formations of illusion and destruction, then the heaven-breaching palace could advance and retreat at will. It would not be a dream for them to become a super force. I have to do everything I can to recruit him. Chapter 14:35. The formation was broken, which caused a gust of wind. Lu Li's cyan robe was fluttering in the wind. He stood with his hands clasped behind his back. His white hair danced in the wind. His calmness, with a hint of coldness and arrogance, was a strong visual impact. Of course, all this was based on the premise that Lu Li had cracked the formation with 1 finger. If Lu Li were just an insignificant warrior, others would think he was an idiot for doing this. Lu Li had done all this on purpose. Naturally, he did not have the ability to crack the formation with 1 finger. Not even a master craftsman could do this. This time, Lu Li did not use his blood vine. After all, two super mighty warriors from the divinity were here. No matter how well hidden the blood vine was, it would be noticed. Luli could crack the formation with one finger only because he had done something. Luli had asked Blood Fairy to secretly alter the formation when he was walking around. There was a big loophole in the formation. With his secret arrangement, it was easy for Luli to crack the formation. The reason why Luli did this was not to act tough, but to stay alive. He wanted to strengthen Yuan Yuyu's desire to recruit him. As long as Yuan Yuyu could not bear to kill him, it would be much easier for him to survive. Clearly, Luli's arrangement was successful, as could be seen from the way Yuan Yuyu and Lu Changhe looked at him. Luli was relieved. At the very least, he would be safe before he completely refused to join the Heavenly Palace. Master Yuan, I am started to build the formation. Luli nodded to Yuan Yuyu. Many formation stones flew out from his hand and disappeared into the ground. He was so fast that it was dazzling. Luli did not follow any pattern. He would throw stones here and there. He would change the formation stones constantly. It was hard for others to understand and remember the sequence. Of course, even if they could remember, what could they do? The construction of a formation was not easy. It could not be copied by watching someone do it once. The placement of each formation stone, the connection of each formation pattern, the angle of each line, and the placement of each formation required great knowledge. As long as there was a problem in one area, the slightest mistake could lead to a huge difference. Therefore, Yuan Yuyu did not plan to steal the Sky Dragon's formation. She was just observing Lu Li's methods and train of thought. After a while, she admired Lu Li even more. It didn't matter if Lu Li could build the heaven-locking formation of dragons, or if the formation was as powerful as Yuan Shangchang said. At least when it came to formations, Lu Li was a master. She could only admit that she was not as good as Lu Li. She felt the gap was like heaven and earth. Lu Li did not stop to rest. He moved around the valley and threw out countless formation stones. Many lines were connected. Formation eyes had been calculated and everything was in order. It was just that it took a long time. In the beginning, Yuan Yuyu had been following Lu Li. Later on, she grew tired. Formations could not be learned just by looking around. Later on, she decided to give up learning secretly. Every profession has its own specialization. A person's energy was always limited. It was impossible to reach a high realm in every aspect. If she wanted to reach a very high level in the field of formations for a very long time, it would inevitably affect her martial arts progress. This was what Lu Li had in the past. The reason why Lu Li didn't study formations all the time was that he wanted to be a warrior. He didn't want to focus on forging artifacts for the rest of his life. Therefore, when she felt the gap between her and Lu Li was too wide, she gave up on learning. Instead, she thought about how to recruit Lu Li and how to recruit him. Do I really have to sacrifice my body? That punk? Yuan Yuyu was in deep thoughts. She was a super mighty warrior in the divinity, but the master of the palace of Heaven-Breaking Palace had to compromise. Inevitably, she felt uncomfortable. Also, if this matter was spread out, it would affect her reputation. Master was a promiscuous woman. How could her subordinates accept her? How could they have cohesion and loyalty? Lu Li paid no attention to Yuan Yuyu. He focused all his attention on the formation. Formations were not a game. One mistake could ruin all the previous efforts. Tens of millions of divine sources would be wasted. Therefore, towards the end, Lu Li didn't care about anything else. He would accept it if someone wanted to kill him. He could not afford to be distracted at the moment. Lu Changhe, Yuan Shangchang, and the others had been following Lu Li around in case any accidents would disturb Lu Li. For example, if a disciple were to rush out and startle Lu Li could put the blame on the palace of Heaven-Breaking Palace. He might demand an exorbitant price and demand hundreds of millions of divine sources from the palace of Heaven-Breaking Palace. The formation at the Kunlun Mountain took 3 to 4 days to build, but the one here took 9 days and 9 nights. Toward the end, Lu Li's progress was slow. Sometimes he would need several hours to finish one formation stone. Clearly, Lu Li was doing this on purpose. He wanted the palace of heaven-breaking palace to think that the formation would take a long time and energy. He wanted others to think that it was not easy for him to build the formation. Yuan Yu had gone back a long time ago. Patriarch Lu and the others had been with her. For immortals of this level, they could go without sleep or rest for a year or two. For them, these few days were just a blink of an eye. At dawn on the 10th day, Lu Li finally stopped. He used psychic power to check for a moment. Then divine energy glowed in his hand. He smashed at the ground and shouted, "Rise!" like a single spark setting a prairie ablaze. That surge of divine energy lit up the formation underground. Soon, the formation began to spread to all sides. Then the entire heaven-breaching valley lit up. A surge of holy energy enveloped the heaven-breaching valley, alarming everyone. Be patient. Stay where you are and wait for orders. Kill anyone who dares to move. Lu Changhe's body soared into the air, and he shouted angrily. Lu Li had told them not to panic in case of any strange movements or to move. Otherwise, the Palace of Heaven-Breaking Palace would be responsible if something went wrong with the formation. Whoosh! Yuan Yu was alarmed. She flew up and stood in midair. She saw the golden dragons whooshing up and intertwining with each other. Soon, they formed a golden net in midair. She was taken aback. Lu Li did not lie to her. She could tell that this formation was strong, much stronger than the original one. Tens of thousands of golden dragons hovered in midair. Eventually, they formed a net that enveloped the entire heaven-breaching valley. The boundless golden light illuminated the entire valley, and the tens of thousands of people down below were also illuminated in a golden light. After the time, for dozens of breaths, the golden light died down. The shield in midair had taken shape. Lu Li closed his eyes to check for the time for one incense stick to burn. Then, he nodded and said, "The heaven lock of dragons is done. Master Yuan, Master Lu, you can go out a try. If you can break the formation, I will not charge you anything." "Okay, let's go out and have a try." Yuan Yu was eager to give a try. The formation was a good one, and its aura was terrifying. That being said, whether the formation would work or not would have to be tested. They would not agree to spend 3 billion on a formation that looked impressive but was of no use. Chapter 1436. Boom, boom, boom. The two super mighty warriors from the divinity were attacking wildly. They both took out their weapons, but did not use their strongest moves. After all, it was not a matter of life and death. They didn't have to risk their lives. They wouldn't use their trump cards in front of so many people. Even so, the attacks of these two people were still very tyrannical, especially Lu Changhe, who shot out streams of silver light. It was as if the Milky Way was falling down. That shocking power scared many disciples to the point that their souls were trembling. Yuan Yu's attacks seemed to be casual. She waved her sleeves and shot out rays of red light. Those rays of red light formed into phoenixes and smashed at the shield. This was not the first time they had seen their master attack, but many disciples still admired her. To many disciples, this master was a goddess. She was the combination of beauty, wisdom, and strength. To many, Yuan Yu was likely to become a supreme warrior in the divinity. By then, the heaven-breaching palace would become a super force and even replace a god. The two powerful warriors had been attacking for 2 hours. Not only was the heaven lock of dragons not cracked, it didn't even tremble and its color didn't change. Okay. Yuan Yu checked the heaven lock of dragons carefully. She waved her hand and said, "Uncle Lu, this is enough. We cannot crack this formation. I don't think more super mighty warriors from the divinity can do it, unless a supreme warrior from the divinity comes." Lu Changhe nodded. He had the same feeling. Their attacks could not reach the critical point. Therefore, they couldn't crack the formation even if they attacked for 1,000,000 years, let alone 2 hours. This is good. Yuan Yu and Lu Changhe were delighted. With this formation, the heaven-breaching palace would have no worries as long as they didn't offend the super forces and the 9 divinity kings. No top-rank force could pose a threat to the heaven-breaching palace. The heaven-breaching palace could advance or retreat, attack or defend, which would be beneficial to its future development. Buzzing, Luli poured out a ray of Xian energy. The heaven lock of dragons disappeared in midair. Yuan Yu and Lu Chang'e flew in. Luli poured out another ray of Xian energy. The formation came out again, but soon it disappeared. This formation will stay hidden. Once someone is under attack, it will come out. Luli explained and added, this formation needs 10 more days to stabilize. After 10 days, I will add more formation stones. By then, the defensive power of the formation can be increased by 20%. Hiss, the few elders sucked in a breath of cold air. The defensive power of the array could still be increased? Now that he was already so strong, what level would he reach if he increased it by another 20%? Yuan Shangchang asked on behalf of everyone else, Home Master Lu, what is the final level of defense? Luli glanced over to the warriors and said with a smile, not too strong. At best, they can survive attacks from supreme warriors in the divinity for 10 days. As for the super mighty warriors in the divinity, not even 10,000 of them can do it. Hiss, sounds of people sucking in a breath of cold air could be heard. A supreme being from the immortal world was the strongest being in the immortal world. A supreme being from the immortal world could kill everyone in the heaven-crushing palace with a single move. Also, judging from Luli's tone, this was not the most powerful formation he could build. A faint blush appeared on Yuan Yu's face. Light swirled in her eyes, making her look even more beautiful. She asked with a smile, Palace Lord Lu, from your tone, you seem to be able to arrange an even stronger formation. Maybe. Luli shrugged and said, recently, I have been working on a formation. If it is successful, I think it can survive attacks from supreme warriors in the divinity for 10 years. Everyone was stunned. If a formation that could withstand attacks from supreme warriors in the divinity could be built in the heaven-crushing valley, it could ensure the prosperity of the heaven-crushing palace for generations to come. After all, how could a supreme warrior in the divinity attack for 10 years? Luli smiled and said, this formation is just my idea. The possibility of it being built is not high. It is too difficult. I'm just thinking about it. If it were not for the formation of dragons, nobody would believe Luli's words. But now, many trusted him. When Luli said that the possibility of building a formation like this was not high, everyone thought he was being modest. The possibility was very high. Grandmaster Lu, thank you. Let's go and have some rest. I have prepared a banquet, Yuan Yu said. She seemed to be in a better mood. Okay, Luli was tired. He thought about it and said, activate the formation for 10 days. If everything goes well after 10 days, then everything will be fine. After 10 days, I will teach you how to control the formation. Luli's claim of 10 days and the 20% increase in the formation's power were all nonsense. Now that the formation was built, there would be no more problems. Luli had his reasons for saying this. He was concerned about his own safety. Before the formation was completed, Yuan Yu and the others would not dare to do anything to him. Luli's ultimate goal was to leave with the divine source. Everything he had done was for this purpose. Inside the white jade palace, the banquet was ready. The seats were the same as before, but this time, there were 2 maids on their knees next to Luli. This time, Yuan Yu smiled more and toasted Luli. Lu Chang'e and the others did the same. They talked to Luli with more respect. Yuan Yu and the others had begun to recruit Luli with all their might. He was such a talent, and he was not particularly powerful. If they could recruit him, he would be easy to control. Where could they find such a talent? Now that there was one, they would try their best to recruit him. The dishes tonight were different. Luli had never heard of many of them. Some of the meat dishes went into his mouth, and he felt a surge of warmth spreading across his body. He felt comfortable from head to toe. Luli could not use divine energy to force the wine out. He was bombarded by others and toasted to him one after another. No matter how strong he was, he could not stand it. In the end, he had to go back to his room with the help of 2 maids. After the two maids left, Luli was about to force the wine out when a gust of fragrance came. Then a slim figure walked in. Yuan Yu had changed into a pink dress. She had taken off her formal clothes. She had drunk quite a bit as well. Her cheeks were rosy, which was quite attractive under the candlelight. Her eyes were filled with lust. When she walked, she swayed her hips and swayed her plump bottom. "Grandmaster Lu, let me take off your shoes." She walked to the bed, squatted down, and tried to take off Lu Li's shoes. Lu Li sobered up a bit. He sat up at once and said, "Master Yuan, you are trying to shorten my life. I cannot do this. I cannot do this." Yuan Yu grabbed Lu Li's feet. She looked up at Lu Li affectionately and said, "Grandmaster Lu, you have helped us build the formation. You have helped us build a foundation that will last for generations. I will do anything for you, not to mention taking off my shoes and washing my feet. Here it is." Chapter 1437. Lu Li was troubled. If it were some other pretty girls, he could let it go. There wouldn't be any repercussions. But he could not do it with this pretty girl. Otherwise, something bad would happen. Lu Li had always been kind to his women. If he were to sleep with Yuan Yu, he would feel guilty. He might not want the remaining 2 billion divine sources, and he might have to stay in the palace of heaven smashing. Therefore, he could not sleep with this girl casually. Lu Li would not fall out with her after doing it with her. What was more, this girl was not decent. She was a pair of lousy shoes. Lu Li was against it. If he could not sleep with her, then he had to turn her down. The problem was, would Yuan Yu turn angry out of humiliation if he turned her down? Would Yuan Yu find out that he did not want to join the palace of heaven smashing and that he was just buying time? If Yuan Yu turned angry, not only would he lose the 2 billion divine sources, he might even lose his life. If Yuan Yu used some special means, such as imprisoning him or tampering with his soul, then he would have to stay in the palace of heaven smashing for the rest of his life. While he was deep in thought, Yuan Yu had taken off his shoes. Then, she took out a basin of water from her interspatial ring and was about to wash Lu Li's feet. Lu Li was sitting down. Looking down, he could see Yuan Yu's shy and charming face. He could also see her snow-white breasts and her towering breasts. Lu Li didn't manage to force the alcohol out of his body, so he felt dizzy. He felt 2 hands grabbing his feet and gently rubbing them. He sighed to himself. If it were anyone else, they would have burst into tears and knelt down to pledge allegiance to Yuan Yu. After all, it was such an honor to have a super mighty warrior in the divinity wash your feet. Lu Li was not tempted. Instead, he felt Yuan Yu was a scheming person. If he were an average person, he wouldn't even be qualified to carry Yuan Yu's shoes, let alone wash his feet. A master of a top-level force, a super mighty warrior in the divinity, washing the feet of a master of Dharma formations. This was too much. It would be a disgrace to Yuan Yu's identity and status, unless Lu Li was her man to begin with. In order to win someone over, Yuan Yu was willing to offer her body. Today, she could do this for Lu Li. Tomorrow, she could do the same for others. Palace Master Yuan, you're really making things difficult for me. When he was almost done, Lu Li said with a bitter smile. He had some ideas in his mind. Yuan Yu took out a towel to wipe Lu Li down and put his legs on the bed. Yuan Yu said, "Young Master Lu, lie down. I will massage your legs. You have done a great favor for the Palace of Heaven. It is not a big deal for me to do this." Yuan Yu pressed Lu Li down and then sat on the edge of the bed. She looked at Lu Li with a smile and began to massage his legs. She was as beautiful as jade, and her body emitted a faint fragrance. From time to time, one would glance at her, and one would be filled with the desire of love. Her perky twin peaks swayed up and down as she moved her arms. Most people would not be able to remain calm in such a beautiful scene and would pounce on her like a hungry wolf. The most important thing was Yuan Yu's identity. If she was just an ordinary beauty, the temptation would not be so great. A palace maid and a queen, even if they were similar in looks, would be worlds apart. For many warriors, the super mighty warriors in the divinity were supreme. They could only look up to them, not get close. Inevitably, Lu Li was tempted. Ever since he came to the divinity, he had been under great pressure, and he never had the chance to make love to a girl. Undoubtedly, Yuan Yu was a beauty that could attract men. If it were not for the fact that Lu Li had a strong will, he would have fallen for her. SH*T. When Yuan Yu was massaging Lu Li's legs, she touched his crotch, whether by accident or on purpose. She did not touch that part, but Lu Li was aroused. Clearly, he had a reaction. Yuan Yu grinned mischievously and stuck out her tongue. Her pink tongue was even more seductive. Lu Li almost lost control of himself and tried to pull Yuan Yu over. But the last moment he did not. Seeing Lu Li move his hand, Yuan Yu had a cunning look in her eyes. All of a sudden, she straddled Lu Li's legs, looked at him with an enchanting smile, and said, "Grandmaster Lu, do you need me to serve you?" She sat on Lu Li's thighs and wriggled. Lu Li's eyes reddened and his breath shortened. Sensing Lu Li's suppressed emotions, Yuan Yu stroked Lu Li's muscles with her hands. Then she pulled on the belt with one hand. Her dress slid down, revealing her smooth shoulders and collarbone. There was also a thin doo-doo. Her breasts were so full that the doo-doo almost burst. Roar! Lu Li could not stand it anymore. He sat up, grabbed the red doo-doo, and pulled it off, turning Yuan Yu into a vacuum. At the same time, his hands, feet, and mouth did not stop. He began to play with Yuan Yu's perfect body at will. Whether it was intentional or not, when Lu Li sat up, a jade talisman on his waist was crushed. Yuan Yu, whose private part was grabbed by Lu Li, was aroused as well. She didn't pay attention to this detail. Lu Li was not an amateur. He was skilled in all kinds of ways. He used all kinds of methods. He hadn't done anything serious yet, but Yuan Yu felt she was about to reach the peak. Her beautiful eyes were half closed, and her face was filled with intoxication. Her delicate body trembled slightly, and her jade lips opened and closed as she spat out a few unclear words. Good man, hurry up and take you." Lu Li's self-control almost collapsed on hearing this. He almost wanted to put everything aside and just make love to her first. Worst came to worst. He could just be the bad guy and walk away. Buzzing, while Yuan Yu was hesitating, the inhibition formation in the room suddenly lit up. The glare pulled Lu Li and Yuan Yu back from the passion. Yuan Yu's eyes were filled with anger and killing intent. She was about to take Lu Li down at this critical moment. Which idiot had the guts to disturb her? Lu Li, on the other hand, breathed a sigh of relief in his heart. He almost lost control of himself just then. Once he had sex with Yuan Yu, it would be difficult for him to negotiate. It would not be easy for him to leave. Even though she was unwilling, Yuan Yu had to stand up and tidy up her clothes. She looked at Lu Li and then opened the door. She asked coldly, "What is it?" It was Yuan Shanchong. She could tell that Yuan Yu was doing something inappropriate just now when she saw how amorous Yuan Yu was. She wondered if she had done it or not. Yuan Shanchong didn't dare to look in. She cupped her fists and said, "Master." The dragon lock formation suddenly glowed. "We are worried, so we have to ask Grandmaster Lu to have a look." "Oh?" Chapter 1438. The Heaven Lock of Dragons would not glow for no reason unless someone was attacking the formation. Yuan Shanchong had made it clear that the formation was glowing all of a sudden. Clearly, it was not an attack. As a matter of fact, the glowing formation was Lu Li's doing. Lu Li had already arranged this when he was building the formation. When Yuan Yu washed his feet, he had already made up his mind. When he sat up, that jade talisman was not broken by accident. He did it on purpose. Once the jade talisman was broken, it would trigger the small mechanism that Lu Li had set up. Then, the Heaven Lock of Dragons would be glowing. Those outside did not know what was going on. They were afraid that something might go wrong with the formation and the warriors of the Heaven Crashing Palace would be killed. Therefore, even though Yuan Shanchong knew that Yuan Yu and Lu Li were having an affair, she had no choice but to disturb them. Lu Li checked and soon came up with a conclusion. There was a small formation in the heaven-crashing valley that hadn't been broken. That was why it was triggered. But Luli had taken care of it. There would be no more problems. Oh, Yuan Yu nodded and said, "There's indeed a formation. I was careless. It is an invisible formation." Yuan Yu did not explain in detail. As a matter of fact, this formation had the function of monitoring disciples of the heaven-crashing palace. Since so many patriarchs were here, it was not convenient for her to say it. After a while, Yuan Yu no longer had the courage to seduce Lu Li. She asked Yuan Shangshang and the others to settle Lu Li down and left by herself. Lu Li did not go back to rest. After Lu Chang'e left, he asked Yuan Shangchang, "Patriarch Yuan, when are you going to give me the remaining divine source?" About that, Yuan Shangchang did not expect that Lu Li would suddenly ask this. She sneered to herself. Originally, Yuan Yu did not want to give him the remaining divine source. Didn't Lu Li almost sleep with Yuan Yu just now? Why was he asking about the divine source now? Was he afraid that if he slept with Yuan Yu, they wouldn't give him the divine source? There were some things that Yuan Shangchang could not say out loud. She said after some hesitation, "I need to ask Master about this. I will give you an answer as soon as possible. Grandmaster Lu, don't worry. I will give you the promised divine source." "That's good." Lu Li nods his head slightly and says, "After obtaining the God source, it can be considered as me having answered to the Brothers of Massacre Shrine. He can also do his best to stabilize the myriad dragons' Skylock formation and ensure that nothing goes wrong." The threat in Lu Li's words was strong. If Lu Li refused to give him the divine sources, he would not do his best, and he could not guarantee that the formation of dragons would remain intact. If something went wrong with the myriad dragon Skylock formation, the heaven-crushing palace's efforts would be in vain. Yuan Shangshang's expression changed slightly. She quickly stood up with a smile and said, "I'll go and ask the palace master. Please take a seat." Yuan Shangshang swayed her voluptuous buttocks as she walked away. Soon, she turned into a palace. After she explained the purpose of her visit, Yuan Yu's expression darkened. She didn't say anything and began to mutter to herself. There were some things she couldn't figure out. Lu Li almost had sex with her just now. How could he turn hostile and ask for divine sources so heartlessly? She had humbled herself and was even willing to give herself to Lu Li. Was this not worth 2 billion divine sources? You want to get both the woman and the money? You wish. Yuan Yu sneered. She was angry that Lu Li didn't know what was good for him. If Lu Li had agreed to join the heaven-crushing palace, she could even give him 4 billion, let alone 2 billion. That being said, Lu Li's threat was powerful. If something went wrong with the Dragon Skylock formation, then all her previous efforts would be in vain. She would have let Lu Li touch her body for nothing. After the time for one incense stick to burn, Yuan Yu said with strong killing intent, "You said that we can give him the divine sources after the formation is stabilized. We will try to recruit him in the next couple of days. If he can't, I'll personally kill him on his way back. He wants to take our divine source. Dream on." Lu Li's plan worked. Yuan Yu didn't want to let go of a talent like Lu Li. Also, she didn't want anything to go wrong with the Dragon Skylock formation. If it were someone else, she would take action as soon as the formation was built. She would capture or control Lu Li. In this way, she wouldn't have to give divine sources, and she could have a master of formations as a slave. But now, she didn't dare to do anything rash. What if something went wrong when she captured Lu Li and something went wrong with the Dragon Skylock formation? Not only would their efforts be in vain, but the original formation would also be ruined. They would have to hire more people to rebuild the formation. Yuan Shangchang understood. She went to Lu Li and said with a sweet smile, "Grandmaster Lu, our master said that the divine sources are not a problem, but it is a large amount and it will take a few days to collect. I hope you can wait patiently." Okay, Lu Li was relieved. It seemed that Yuan Yu would give him the divine sources. But after that, if he didn't want to join the heaven-crushing palace, they would take it back and kill him. "Divine sources are not a big deal," Yuan Shangchang said with a smile. "As long as Grandmaster Lu is willing to stay in the heaven-crushing valley for a long time, I believe our master will treat you well. You can be second only to one and above tens of thousands." You can use many resources of the heaven-crushing palace. Our master thinks highly of you. Yuan Shangchang stated her condition. A position of deputy master. What's more, Lu Li's ranking must be higher than Lu Chang'e. This was a very good treatment for Lu Li. As long as Lu Li nodded his head, he would become the second most important person in the heaven-crushing palace. In the future, he would be able to use many resources of the heaven-crushing palace. Lu Li's face showed that he was moved. Of course, it was just an act. He didn't have a good impression of Yuan Yuyu. This kind of woman always played with all kinds of trickery. In the future, the heaven-crushing palace wouldn't have a good future. If he stayed here, he wouldn't have a good life. He pretended to think for a while and said, "Help me pass this message. Thank our master for thinking highly of me. But I need to go back and ask the massacre shrine for their opinion. If I bring the entire massacre shrine over, will they be able to accept all of them?" "Sure, no problem at all." Yuan Shangchang's face was filled with joy. Lu Li had several thousand men with him, and they all seemed to be quite strong. It was best to bring them over. "Okay, it's settled then." Lu Li immediately made the decision. "After the formation is stabilized and you have paid up all the divine source, I will have to trouble Patriarch Yuan to send me back to the massacre shrine. At that time, I will talk to my brothers. If no one has any opinion, we can all come over to seek shelter from the heaven-crushing palace." Good. Yuan Shangchang was grinning from ear to ear. She stood up and said, "Young Master Lu, go and have a good rest. I will go and report this good news to our master." Yuan Shangchang returned happily and walked into Yuan Yuyu's palace. When the latter heard Yuan Shangchang's report, she didn't show any joy. Instead, she mocked, "Idiot. You have been duped by him. Analyze his words carefully. What he said is as good as nothing. He didn't make any substantial promise." Chapter 1439. For the next couple of days, Lu Li was basically in closed-door cultivation. Yuan Shangchang and Yuan Yuyu didn't even have the chance to approach him. Lu Li had made up his mind that he would not give Yuan Yuyu another chance, or else something might go wrong when he slept with her. On the 10th day, Lu Li finished cultivation on time. He took Yuan Shangchang and the others to have a look at the formation. He even pretended to set up some formation stones, claiming that he had increased the power of the formation by 20%. But Lu Li didn't teach them how to control the formation. Yuan Shangchang knew that Lu Li would not do anything until he saw the reward. He would not teach them how to control the formation without divine sources. Yuan Yuyu had not been idle these past few days. She had invited a few masters in the field of array formations over to carefully inspect the array and confirm that there were no problems. "Grand Master Lu," Yuan Shangchang had a ring in her hand, but she didn't hand it over. Instead, she said in a low voice with a smile, "Can you give me a definite answer about joining the heaven-breaching palace so that I can answer to our master?" "No problem." Lu Li shrugged and said, "I personally have no objection. When I go back, I will gather all the members. If they're okay with it, we will move here right away. Patriarch Yuan, you can go with us. I will gather all the members in front of you to discuss." Lu Li's words were sincere. Yuan Shangchang handed over the ring. Lu Li took it over and checked with psychic power. After making sure that the number of divine sources was correct, he put it away with a smile. Lu Li told Yuan Shangchang how to control the Heavenlock formation, and Yuan Shangchang passed it on to another patriarch. That patriarch flew over and tried to control the formation. He nodded after making sure that everything was right. "Time is of the essence." Lu Li waved his hand and said, "Patriarch Yuan, please make the arrangements. Tomorrow, we will set off for the Kunlun Mountain. When everything is done, we can come back as soon as possible, right? Also," Lu Li suddenly moved closer to Yuan Shangchang and whispered into her ear, "I want to talk to our master tonight. Ask her to come to my room for a chat. Of course, if Patriarch Yuan wants to come as well, it will be the best." Lu Li's words made Yuan Shangchang tremble. How dare Lu Li want to play with her? Although it was exciting, Yuan Yuyu might not agree to it. "Look of death," Yuan Shangchang pinched Lu Li's waist and said, "You are asking too much. You wish." "Ha ha ha." Lu Li turned around and walked back to his palace. Yuan Shangchang, on the other hand, felt relieved. For the past few days, Luli had closed his door and refused to see any guests, which surprised Yuan Yuyu and Bai Suxian. Now, Luli was eyeing Yuan Yuyu and her. It was clear that Luli was willing to join the heaven-breaching palace because he wanted both the girl and the money. When Yuan Shangchang conveyed Lu Li's words to Yuan Yuyu, the latter's frown eased. Lu Li was greedy, but it was acceptable. Divine sources were nothing to Yuan Yuyu. She could give herself to Lu Li. She could even serve Lu Li with her sister. What she wanted was Lu Li's absolute loyalty. A good general was hard to find, and a talented person was priceless. Yuan Yuyu would not have been reassured if Lu Li had given in without any request. Master and Patriarch would stay with him for a night. This was an unprecedented condition. If Lu Li still didn't know what was good for him, Yuan Yuyu would kill him right away. Sister, on this thought, Yuan Yuyu said uncomfortably, "Go back and freshen up. Come with me to see Lu Lin at night." Okay, Yuan Shangchang had always been thick-skinned. Even so, she was embarrassed. She walked out with a blushing face. All she could think of was how she and Yuan Yuyu would make love with Lu Li at night. Finally, night fell. Yuan Yuyu and Yuan Shangchang were a little embarrassed. It wouldn't have been a big deal if it were just one person. But the two of them had to stay with one person. The two of them were not close. It was inevitable that they would feel awkward and uncomfortable. Yuan Shangchang washed up and changed into a bright red dress. She put on some light makeup, which made her look charming and charming. She was early and waited outside Lu Li's palace for Yuan Yuyu's arrival. After an hour, Yuan Yuyu finally arrived. She was still wearing a pink palace dress. The dress was more than half a meter long, and there were two maids following behind her. She looked at Yuan Shangchang, who was standing outside, and forced a smile. "I am sorry, sister." Even though the two sisters held grudges against each other, they pretended to be polite. Yuan Shangchang bowed and said, "It is what I should do." "I am sorry, master." Yuan Yuyu waved her hand and asked the two maids to wait outside. Without her order, no one could come in no matter what. Yuan Yuyu calmed herself down and walked into the palace with Yuan Shangchang. It was quiet inside. Lu Li was not in the hall, and the door was closed. Yuan Yuyu was not happy. Lu Li was putting on airs. They came together, and he did not come out to greet them. How could he put on airs when the two sisters had come to his door? "Go and knock on the door." Yuan Yuyu sighed and waved her hand. She turned around and did not look at the door. Her cheeks were burning with shame and anger. It would be better if Lu Li was a supreme warrior in the divinity. But he was only as strong as an immortal on the list. Buzzing, the inhibition formation on the door was activated. Yuan Shangchang activated the inhibition formation with divine energy. Yuan Yuyu was nervous. She felt shy, wronged, and expectant at the same time. All kinds of feelings welled up in her mind. It was the same for Yuan Shangchang. Of course, she felt more wronged than wronged. Previously, she tried to seduce Lu Li, but he was not interested. Now, he was asking her to be a bonus. Clearly, he was disrespecting her. But what could she do? She was desperate. She was like a dog at the beck and call of others. Yuan Shangchang became excited at the thought that she and Yuan Yuyu would be accompanying Lu Li. Her younger sister had been looking down on her. Later on, she would kneel in front of Lu Li like a dog and accept his favor. Buzzing, the inhibition formation glowed for the time for 10 breaths, but the door did not open. Yuan Shangchang frowned. What was Lu Li doing? Wasn't he putting on airs enough? Yuan Yuyu was even more upset. She felt humiliated by Lu Li. She thought to herself that if Lu Li did not open the door in 10 breaths, she would leave. Soon, the time for another 10 breaths passed, but the door did not move. Yuan Yuyu and Yuan Shangchang's expressions were awful. Yuan Yuyu stomped her feet and was about to leave. She had just taken a few steps when she sensed something was wrong. Her eyes flickered. Suddenly, she shot out a ray of Xian energy at the inhibition formation on the door. The inhibition formation on the door was just an average one. How could it withstand Yuan Yuyu's furious attack? The inhibition formation on the door was smashed at once. The stone door opened slowly. Nobody. Yuan Shangchang used psychic power to check. When she saw that there was nobody inside, she was stunned. Then, she was filled with killing intent. She had been fooled. She and Yuan Shangchang had been washing up and struggling for a long time. Finally, they plucked up the courage to come here, ready to be molested by Lu Li. But Lu Li was not here. Yuan Shangchang felt her face was burning. This was the biggest humiliation she had ever suffered in her life. Buzzing. Chapter 1440. Lu Li was gone. He had left in the afternoon. Naturally, the way he left was by flying into the void. As a matter of fact, when he flew into the void in the afternoon, the space in the room was trembling. But he had built an inhibition formation to stabilize the space. Besides, nobody was watching in the palace. Therefore, he left without making a sound. Should he let Yuan Shangchang send him back? Lu Li was not that stupid. What if Yuan Yu changed her mind and suddenly came to assassinate him? With Yuan Shangchang by his side, his whereabouts would be tracked at all times. She could assassinate him at any time. It was impossible for him to submit to the heaven-breaching palace. Yuan Yu was not worthy of him following her, not to mention anything else. If he followed a leader like her, he might die before he knew it. Lu Li would be an idiot not to leave now that he had the divine sources. Therefore, he flew into the void and left. Even if his real identity was suspected, there was nothing he could do. To earn divine sources, he had to take risks. Yuan Yu was enraged. The entire heaven-breaching palace took action. Lu Changhe and more than a dozen patriarchs went to different directions to track down Lu Li. The others searched around the heaven-breaching valley. They must find Lu Li even if they had to dig deep. Yuan Yu used psychic power to check. She was confused. How did Lu Li leave? The heaven-breaching valley was full of her people. There were scouts everywhere. With so many powerful warriors checking with psychic power at all times, Lu Li would not be able to leave without a trace, even if he were a fly. Yuan Yu suddenly noticed a corner of Lu Li's room with psychic power. She saw some broken formation stones in the corner. She dashed in. Soon, she flew into a rage. She said, "Teleportation altar." There was a small altar in the room, but it was broken. This was a smokescreen that Lu Li left on purpose. It was a good arrangement. Yuan Yu was sure that Lu Li had left through this teleportation formation. She left the valley quietly and ran away at once. "Someone!" Yuan Yu shouted and ordered, "Send out all warriors of the Hall of Warfare. Divide into 8 teams and go in 8 directions. Send a secret signal to report as soon as you see Lu Lin." Whoosh whoosh, a patriarch turned off the dragon lock formation. More than 10,000 warriors of the Hall of Warfare rushed out. Every leader led a team. They dispersed to all directions like locusts, tracking down Lu Li's whereabouts. How could this group of people track Lu Li's whereabouts? Not even Lu Changhe could find Lu Li. There were no traces outside the valley, and Lu Li was hundreds of millions of miles away. Lu Li could fly across several prefectures in one leap. The King Pan city was not far away. Lucky for him, he had arrived at the King Pan city by chance. When Lu Li came out, he was in a mountain. He used psychic power to check for a while and was relieved to make sure that nobody was around. He activated the soul concealment battle armor and circled around the area. He took out a map and compared it to the surroundings. He discovered that he was near Pan King City and was immediately overjoyed. After passing King Pan City, they would be able to return to Mount Kunlun in another 10 to 15 days. As long as he returned to Mount Kunlun, even if Yuan Yu and Lu Changhe came, he would not be afraid. The myriad Dragon Sky Lock Grand Formation was not something that these two people could break. Along the way, Lu Li was in a good mood. He went out for a stroll and gained 3 billion divine sources. If he could build some more formations, he could have 10 billion divine sources. With divine sources, a force could develop quickly. Also, Lu Li could improve his abilities quickly. With so many divine sources, unless Lu Li was not talented, it would be easy for him to improve his abilities. There were several ways to improve his abilities. The first was divine energy, the second was his soul, the third was his physical body, and the fourth was his fundamental principle. There was another way, which was to learn powerful skills to improve his abilities as well. Luli had an idea. He was about to arrive at the King Pan City. Could he go and see if there were any monuments in the city? Ever since he read about the monuments, Luli had been yearning for them. If he could buy one, it would be of great benefit to him and the entire massacre shrine. Let's go. On this thought, Luli sped up. Half a day later, he arrived at the gate of the King Pan City. He put on a silver fox mask and strode toward the gate. Token. The warrior at the gate stopped Luli coldly. Luli was surprised. Last time, he went in with Yuan Shanchong. He didn't know that he needed a token to enter the city. No token. Luli had to tell the truth. The warrior said coldly, "If you don't have a token, you will have to pay 10,000 divine sources." *T robbing. Luli rolled his eyes. He asked, "How do I get token?" "Go to the Department of Internal Affairs." The warrior explained emotionlessly, "You can get a token after paying 1 million divine sources. You can come and go as you please." Luli was speechless. This was robbery. One token cost 1 million divine sources? How many divine sources could be transferred from the King Pan's mansion every year? Right? Luli suddenly remembered that Pan Yuqin gave him a token. There was a word Pan on that token. Could he enter the city with this token? Otherwise, he would have to pay 1 million divine sources to buy a token. Buzzing, the interspatial ring on his hand glowed. He took out that token and waved it. The warrior in front of him was shocked. The warriors nearby were shocked as well. They used psychic power to check. Suddenly, they dropped to one knee and shouted, "Greetings, Lord." Swish, 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 the thousands of soldiers standing at the city gate were alarmed. An unfamiliar commander swept a glance over and quickly knelt down on one knee. "Greetings, Lord." Bang, bang, bang. Now that the team leader had knelt down, everyone else followed suit. Luli and the warriors going in and out of the city were all on their knees, which frightened him. Many warriors going in and out of the city looked at Luli, wondering who he was. How come he could make the warriors of the King Pan's mansion drop to their knees? After all, even if the leader of a high-rank force came, these soldiers wouldn't kneel, right? Unless a big shot of a supreme force was here. What is this Pan Yuqin's identity? Luli himself was scared. He just wanted to enter the city for free. He didn't know that the token was so powerful. He put away the token embarrassedly and said, "Can I enter the city?" "Of course, Lord, please." That team leader glared at the warrior in front of Luli and said with respect with a smile. Luli dared not to stay any longer. He walked into the city and soon disappeared. Only when Luli was in the city did the leader stand up. The warriors that scolded Luli were sweating on their foreheads. A mighty warrior from the divinity was about to enter the city. Seeing this, he walked over to the leader and asked, "Brother, who is that? He scared you." The leader wiped the sweat off his forehead. He looked around and said in a low voice, "He has the token of King Pan. King Pan gave it out himself. There are only 30 of them." "Hiss, hiss," that mighty warrior gasped. He committed Luli's body size to memory. When he returned, he was going to tell the people in his faction not to provoke this person. Chapter 1441. It was getting dark. Luli wanted to go to the Lord Pan Palace right away, but he decided to stay for the night and think about it tomorrow. It was not suitable to discuss business at night. If Pan Yuqin was not in the Lord Pan Hall, Ye Kai would have to invite her. Luli wanted to find someone to ask about the situation. He didn't want to bother Pan Yuqin if he could avoid going to the Lord Pan Hall to buy the steel because he didn't want to owe anyone too much. Also, Pan Yuqin's status might not be low. If she were just an average young lady of the Pan family, Luli wouldn't have so many concerns. But now, he didn't dare to go to her rashly. Luli had some pride in his bones. He didn't want to rely on women too much. It would make him feel like he was living off a woman. That was what happened to Bai Qiuxue and Jiang Qiling. Luli had been trying to maintain his dignity and pride as a man. Luli checked into a yard in the tavern he stayed in last time. He called the waiter in and gave him 1,000 divine sources. The attendant immediately understood. He bowed and said, "Sir, if there's anything you need, feel free to tell me." Luli asked casually, "Apart from the Lord Pan Hall, are there any other chambers of commerce where I can buy materials and treasures?" "Yes," the attendant quickly replied. "There are two other chambers of commerce. One is the Yuyan Palace, and the other is the North Snow Palace. These two are the largest merchant associations in Yuyan Pass. The Yuyan Palace mainly does auctions, while the North Snow Palace mainly sells ordinary divine materials. They sell in large quantities, but at low prices." "Auction?" Luli frowned. He didn't like auctions very much. This was because the price of an item that was originally not that high, if someone were to snatch it, the price would increase several times. It was not easy for him to obtain his divine roots. He could not squander them as he pleased. The North Snow Hall was only trading in low-grade divine materials. It seemed like they were trading in quantity, so there was no way they would have divine steals. Luli thought about it and asked, "Do you know which Chamber of Commerce sells the sacred steel? Divine monument?" The attendant had heard of such a treasure before, but he clearly didn't know the specifics. He shook his head and said, "The divine steel is too precious. It's a supreme treasure. How would I know? You can go to Lord Pan Hall and Yuyan Hall to try your luck." "All right, take the divine source and leave." Luli waved his hand. The waiter thanked him and left with the divine source. He was delighted. He had actually gotten 1,000 divine roots just by casually asking a few questions. That was his annual salary. "Tomorrow, I'll go to Yuyan Palace and ask." Luli decided to go to the Yuyan Palace to ask. If there was no one, then he would have to go to the Lord Pan Palace. It was a quiet night. The next day, when the sun was high up in the sky, Luli opened his eyes. After washing up, he strode out and went directly to a huge castle on the west side of the plaza. Inside, Luli said that he wanted to buy something worth more than 100 million divine sources. The maid in the hall became more respectful and showed Luli to a side chamber. "Greetings, honored guest." In the side hall was a steward about the same age as Ikai. He had a friendly smile on his face and was very polite. Businessmen were usually very polite to their customers, especially to wealthy ones. After tea and snacks were served and the maid left, Luli went straight to the point and asked, "Chief Steward Zhang, do you have a monument? Divine monument?" The smile on caretaker Zhang's face widened, and he immediately replied, "Currently, there are two divine monuments in the palace. One is a middle-grade one, and the other is a transcendent grade one. This transcendent grade spirit steel was just unearthed not long ago. It was found in the Ghost King Valley in the southwest." "Middle rank? Transcendent grade?" Luli asked in confusion. "What is the difference?" Chief Steward Zhang looked at Luli in surprise. If Luli could afford a monument, he must be from a big force. How come he didn't know this? Still, Chief Steward Zhang explained patiently. Like relics, divine monuments are divided into holy grade, supreme grade, high grade, middle grade, and low grade. Monuments of different grades contain different levels of fundamental meanings and Taoist meanings. For example, our middle grade monument contains 6 Taoist meanings of fundamental meanings of fundamental meanings. That transcendent grade God steel contains 1 transcendent grade true meaning, 3 high grade true meanings, 10 middle grade true meanings. "I see." Luli nodded and asked, "What about the price? Can I buy it directly?" "Middle grade divine monuments can be bought directly." Chief Steward Zhang answered frankly, "I will not make an offer. The fixed price is 100 million divine sources. The transcendent grade monument cannot be bought directly. It will be auctioned in 3 days. The highest bidder will get it." Auctioned, Luli curled his lips. Once any treasure was auctioned, the price would be out of control. If the news was spread out, not only the forces in the southwest would participate, but the forces in other parts of the land of Yuyan might also participate in the auction. Luli didn't give up and asked, "What is the price of this transcendent grade monument?" If it was something like 1 billion, Lu Li planned to fight for it. If he could get this monument, his combat strength might increase by leaps and bounds. There were so many fundamental meanings and Taoist meanings contained in it. If he brought it back to the massacre shrine, many people could quickly comprehend fundamental meanings and increase their combat strength. Generally, Chief Steward Zhang thought for a while and said, "Last time, there was a similar monument. I remember it was sold for 30 billion divine sources." 30 billion. Lu Li rolled his eyes and gave up completely. He only had 2 billion divine sources. He had probably just reached the minimum price. "Can you bring me to see that middle-grade monument?" Lu Li asked. If this middle-grade monument was useful, then he would spend 100 million divine sources to buy it. "Sure, please." Chief Steward Zhang stood up and led Lu Li to the back. After 7 or 8 turns, they arrived at a hall. There were 2 warriors guarding the hall. Chief Steward Zhang waved his hand and said, "Go and bring out the number 18 monument." The 2 warriors went into a room and soon brought out a black monument. This monument was in the shape of a square column with a base at the bottom. It was more than 3 feet tall and carved with bold and flamboyant characters. The monument was quite old. Even though the materials seemed to be good, there were still some traces of time. Some of the characters were blurry. Lu Li tried to read the characters carefully. Suddenly, he was touched. In those flamboyant characters, he found Taoist meanings. Clearly, the owner of the monument had integrated his understanding of fundamental meanings into the characters for future generations to comprehend. There are not many characters, only about 100. Even though some of the characters were blurry, Lu Li could understand them when they were connected. This was the life story of an expert. It spoke of where he had ascended from and how many years he had roamed the immortal world. In the end, he came to the land of Yuyan and became the leader of a large force. Before his lifespan came to an end, he carved this stone tablet for his descendants to study. There are 6 middle-grade fundamental meanings. After Lu Li finished reading, he realized his soul was touched 6 times. There must be 6 fundamental meanings and Taoist meanings contained in the characters. Deal. 100 million divine sources was not a lot. Even if this monument was not useful to him, it would be helpful to warriors of the massacre shrine. Lu Li and Chief Steward Zhang haggled for a while and set the price at 80 million divine sources. Lu Li put away the monument after he paid and left. Bang! As soon as he stepped out of the hall, Lu Li saw a black shadow dashing toward him at a fast speed. In the Pan-King city, no one was allowed to use force. Lu Li had let down his guard, so his reaction was slower. Moreover, he was still thinking about the transcendent grade god steel just now, so he was not paying attention and was sent flying by the charging black shadow. Are you blind? Are you courting death? Chapter 1442. The one who bumped into Lu Li was a young and beautiful lady. But the rage on her face and the coldness in her eyes made Lu Li's impression of her worsen. It was this lady who bumped into him. How could she say that he was blind? She was threatening him. The lady's guards came over, which enraged Lu Li. Which family was this lady from? How could she be so arrogant? Lu Li did not say anything. The lady was even more upset. She stared at Lu Li and said, "What are you looking at? I'll dig your eyeballs out if you keep looking, you little bastard." Lu Li was wearing a mask. To this lady, he was just a fool. More importantly, Lu Li was only as strong as an immortal on the list. For this lady, he was no different from a puny insect. She was already unhappy that he was looking at her like this. Now, she was even more upset. Lady Yang, a team leader outside the hall of Yuyan Palace, seemed to know this lady. He walked over and said in a low voice, "This is the gate of the hall of Yuyan Palace. Do me a favor and don't make trouble here. It is not good." Lady Yang was fuming. She glared at the team leader of the hall of Yuyan Palace coldly and said, "Team leader Zhang, the Heaven Frigid Palace does a lot of business for you every year, right? Are you siding with an outsider? Believe it or not, I will go back and tell my father that I will not do business with you anymore." Ha ha. The team leader of the hall of Yuyan Palace grinned. He turned around and said, "It is not up to you to decide whether we do business or not. But if you dare to make a scene at the gate of the hall of Yuyan Palace, don't blame us for not showing respect to the Heaven Frigid Palace. Also, this is the Pan King City." The pretty lady was so angry that her face turned pale. Her breasts were trembling. Admittedly, this Lady Yang was one of the best in terms of looks. However, her bossy nature was annoying. "Take him out of the city." Lady Yang glared at Lu Li coldly and winked at her guards. She had 7 or 8 guards and a mighty warrior from the divinity. The 7 or 8 guards were hesitating. After all, this was the Pan King City. If they made a scene here, not even God could save them. The mighty warrior from the divinity thought about it and said to Lu Li, "Punk, if you know what's good for you, get on your knees and kowtow to young lady 9 times. If young lady is still angry, your life will be in danger." "Really?" Lu Li put on a cold smile. At first, he had thought that this young lady had a powerful background. It turned out that she was just the daughter of the master of the palace of Heaven Frigid Palace, a high-rank force. Lu Li knew about the Heaven Frigid Palace. It was a superior force near the Pan King City. No wonder the commander of the Yuyan Palace did not give them face. If she were a young lady from a super-rank force, Lu Li might have some concerns. But a young lady from a top-rank force dared to be so unscrupulous. "How'd she grow up? Why wasn't he beaten to death? Are you deaf?" The mighty warrior from the divinity was irritated by Lu Li's silence. If they were not in the city, he would have killed Lu Li. A little god, wearing an ordinary green robe and not having a single valuable thing on him, was actually so ignorant of the current situation. This mighty figure of the god realm was very familiar with the situation in the southwest of the land of Yuyan. He knew all the young masters of the great forces and families. Lu Li did not look like a young master of a big force. At the very least, he didn't have any escorts with him. How could a young master of a big force go out without escorts? Therefore, this almighty being from the immortal realm was somewhat unbridled. He knew that his young Mrs. Temper had been very bad recently, so if he did not help her vent her anger today, given her temper, she would definitely cause a huge ruckus. "I'm not deaf," Lu Li answered coldly. Then he said lightly, "I don't want to make trouble. Get lost." "Scram?" Lu Li's attitude completely enraged Lady Yang. She snorted and said, "Yang Tong, what are you talking to him for? Take him out of the city and kill him." "Kid, don't be so shameless." The mighty warriors in the divinity were enraged as well. Lu Li was too arrogant. How could he tell them to piss off, even though they couldn't attack in Pan King City? However, he also knew a few commanders from Pan King Manor. As long as he didn't make too much of a ruckus, it wouldn't be a big deal. Lu Li shrugged and said, "So I don't give you face? What? Do you want to fight? Come on." "What?" The 7 or 8 escorts were taken aback. They were filled with killing intent. A glint of coldness rose in the eyes of the mighty warrior from the divinity. He dashed toward Lu Li like a fox and made a move directly. As far as Yang Tong was concerned, Lu Li's abilities were insignificant. He could take Lu Li down, take him out of the city, and kill him. Lu Li didn't fight back. He didn't even move. He just yelled, "How dare you fight in the Pan King City? Are you challenging Pan King City, the law of the Pan King City?" Lu Li's voice was loud. Even though he did not use Dragon Roar, his voice was heard across half of the plaza. If he used the Dragon Roar Divine technique, the entire Pan King City would tremble. Lu Li was not that stupid. If he angered some big shots, he would be killed on the spot. Whoosh, 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 there were patrolling warriors in the plaza. 2 teams of 20 warriors came at once. Yang Tong was about to slap Lu Li's neck to seal off his divine energy and take him down. However, he stopped because many psychic powers had locked onto him. Courting death. Lady Yang was fuming. She took out a jade talisman and crushed it. Then she murmured with a cold smile, "Bastard, I will see how you die." "What is it? How dare you use force in the Pan King City? You have violated the law of the Pan King City. You will be executed on the spot." 2 teams of warriors rushed over. One of the team leaders looked at Lu Li, Lady Yang, and Yang Tong coldly and said, "Settle your scores outside the city." Fighting in the city is not allowed. He tried to kill me just now. Lu Li was unhappy. Pointing to Yang Tong, he said, "Didn't you see that? He tried to kill me." Yang Tong had already taken action. So many people had locked onto Lu Li with psychic powers, but the warriors pretended not to see anything. Naturally, Lu Li was unhappy. "What are you blabbering about?" The team leader waved his hand coldly and said, "Leave now. I will arrest all of you if you make any more trouble." Lady Yang snorted and said, "This man tried to molest me, and he refused to apologize. Why don't you arrest him? I have informed young Master Pan Ning. When he comes, you will be punished." Young Master Pan Ning? The warriors' expressions changed. They all knew this young master. His surname was Pan. They didn't know that this young lady was related to Pan Ning. The team leader glanced over to Lu Li. He didn't have a strong chi and energy and was dressed in an average way. Lu Li was young, so he shouldn't have any background. The team leader thought about it, made up his mind, waved his hand and said, "Take him down." So evil. Lu Li sighed to himself. His expressions grew cold. He looked at the team leader coldly and said, "Team leader, this is between us. I think it is better for us to settle it privately. Otherwise, if we break the rules and the higher-ups investigate, you will be implicated. How about I go with them outside the city?" The team leader's heart skipped a beat, seeing how calm Lu Li was and how arrogant he was. He looked at Lady Yang and Yang Tong. "Okay." Lady Yang was amused. She clapped her hands and said, "Then let's go outside the city. We don't need to bother our brothers of the Pan King's mansion. We don't want to bring you trouble." "No problem." Chapter 1443. Lu Li's roar had attracted many people's attention. Now that the warrior was here, more people were paying attention. Naturally, many people were intrigued by the fact that they were going out to settle the matter. Lu Li, an immortal, dared to provoke a young lady of the Heaven Frigid Palace? They were going to settle the matter outside the city? How could they miss such an interesting event? When Lu Li, Lady Yang, and Yang Tong walked out of the city, many people followed them. Such a large group of people leaving the city in a formidable array had attracted more people. By the time Lu Li and Yang Tong left the city, the number of people following them had reached over 1,000. Of course, they were all minor warriors. The real big shots were not interested in a fight of this level. What? The commander outside the city was not here. It was a strange one, but some warriors on duty the day before were still here. When they saw it was Lu Li, their expressions changed. When they heard that Lu Li was going to fight Yang Tong and the others, their expressions were even worse. Commander, he was not here. Now that another commander was here, the warriors could not make the decision on their own. A warrior waved to someone next to him and said in a low voice, "Go and inform Commander he at once." Okay. That warrior snuck into the city and then dashed out to find Commander he as fast as he could. The warrior thought about it and reported to Commander Wong, who was on duty today. "Commander Wong, do you think we should intervene?" "Intervene in what?" Commander Wong glared at him and said, "As long as they don't make a scene in the city and don't attack the Pan King city, we don't care. This punk is courting death. Who else can he blame? That girl from the Heaven Frigid Palace has a bad temper. Provoking her is courting death." The warrior wanted to say something, but he decided to remind Commander Wong. "Commander Wong, that warrior with a mask." All right. Commander Wong waved his hand impatiently. Did she think this warrior was related to Lu Li? Commander Wong would not offend the Heaven Frigid Palace for an average warrior. This Lady Yang was known for her bad temper. On the other side, Lu Li, Yang Tong, and the others had walked to an open space more than 3 miles away from the city. Lady Yang snorted and said, "Bastard, I will give you one more chance. Get on your knees and kowtow to me 9 times, and I will spare your life." There were more than 1,000 onlookers. Lady Yang felt she was being respected. If Lu Li knelt down to her, she might really spare his life. Lu Li's expression was cold. His face was covered by the mask. He glanced over to Lady Yang, Yang Tong, and the others and said, "I will give you a chance as well. Now, kneel down and kowtow to me 9 times, and I will spare your lives." Wow. People were in an uproar. Lady Yang's energy was similar to Lu Li's. Many of the 7 or 8 warriors were more powerful than Lu Li, not to mention that there was a mighty warrior from the divinity here. Lu Li wanted Lady Yang and the others to kowtow to him. Had he lost his mind? Ha ha! Miss Yang laughed out loud. Her towering twin peaks bounced up and down, causing many people to stare blankly. It was undeniable that Lady Yang's figure and looks were excellent. It was just that she had a bad temper. After a while, Lady Yang put on a cold expression. She waved her hand and said, "Take him down first. Let's see how he can talk back later." Whoosh, 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 Yang Tong waved his hand. 4 escorts rushed over. All of them had weapons in their hands, and they released profound principles or divine skills. But they were holding back. Lady Yang only said to take Lu Li down, not to kill him. Swish, Lu Li took out his demon slayer, aimed at the 2, and swung at them. He didn't even move, allowing the attacks to land on him. A blood-red ray of sword light whooshed on. The world in front of the 2 became a world of blood. The 2 were suppressed by the force in heaven and earth. By the time they came back to their senses, they had already been cut in half. Boom, 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 boom. Almost at the same time, Lu Li was smashed away by 4 attacks. Luckily, the thunder armor on Lu Li helped him survive the 4 attacks. He was not harmed at all. The thunder armor was stronger than average relics. It had absorbed the energy of thunderbolts. Not even 4 mighty warriors in the divinity could break it, let alone 4 average immortals. Supreme relics. Yang Tong came to his senses at once. He was worried. Lu Li's attacks didn't seem to be powerful. How could he kill 2 of his escorts so easily? What was more, Lu Li had been calm, which gave Yang Tong a bad feeling. What else could he do under such circumstances? 2 of his escorts were dead. If he didn't do something, he would not be able to explain himself. Protect Lady Yang. He ordered the other escorts and flew up like a furious dragon. A handful of iron spears appeared in his hand. He became translucent and dashed toward Lu Li in a blur. Lu Li threw Yang Tong a casual glance. He slapped with one hand and then hacked at the demon slayer. This palm and blade didn't have any power. Only 2 spatial shockwaves radiated out one after the other. Oh no! At that moment, Yang Tong sensed fatal danger from the depth of his soul. Out of instinct, he felt something was wrong. He wanted to run back. But how fast were the ripples in space? When he was enveloped by the first ripple, he was like a boat in the raging sea. He could only sway from side to side. I am dead, I am dead. The sense of fatal danger from his soul was clear. He had been living on the line of life and death for years. Yang Tong knew that if he didn't do something, he would die the next second. His mind worked frantically, and then he roared, "Sir, Yang Tong was wrong. I'm willing to kowtow to you 100 times. Please let me live." Lu Li remained calm. His eyes were as cold as a beast. He said, "I have given you a chance. Now die." Boom! Yang Tong's body burst like a balloon, exploding into a bloody mist. His head tumbled down and rolled right next to Miss Yang. Looking at Yang Tong's wide-open eyes, Lady Yang trembled in fear. She screamed and stepped back. Her face was pale. The onlookers were stunned. Lu Li seemed to be an average immortal, but he was only as powerful as an immortal on the list. How could he kill a mighty warrior in the divinity in one move? Furthermore, this almighty from the immortal realm was not an ordinary almighty from the immortal realm. He was an elite with a bit of fame in the Wintry Palace. Let's go. The other escorts were frightened. They dragged Lady Yang and tried to run away. Lu Li threw them a cold glance and said, "Do you dare to leave?" The few sergeants trembled in fear and dared not to move. Lady Yang was even more afraid to move. The message in Lu Li's eyes was clear. If they dared to leave, they would be executed immediately. Rustle, rustle, rustle. Right at that moment, a team of warriors rushed over. A young master in a brocade robe shouted to Lady Yang when he saw her from the distance, "Lear, are you all right? Which fool dares to offend you?" When young Miss Yang saw this young master in an embroidered robe, she was like a bullied child seeing her father. Her tears flowed down like a river as she cried and shouted, "Young Master Pan Ning, if you had come a little later, I would have been killed." Young Master Pan Ning? Chapter 1444. He was killed by someone. Pan Ning's gaze locked onto Lu Li as his eyes were filled with murderous intent. He brought along 7 people and rushed over. 3 of them were experts from the divinity world. When they arrived, they immediately surrounded Lu Li. Pan Ning? Lu Li's eyes turned solemn. This young master is not strong, and it doesn't matter to the 3 experts from the divinity world. The problem is that this young master's surname is Pan. Although the Pan King clan has a lot of people, and Pan Ning is not an important young master, his surname is Pan. If he loses his prestige in front of so many people, he doesn't mind. At worst, he can just leave. The problem is, what about Massacre Shrine? The 9 God Kings are the absolute overlords of Yuyan Pass. This is like the Lu clan of the Heaven Reverse Realm. If an ordinary martial artist defends a young master of the Lu clan, even if it is a branch family young master, the Lu clan will also take action to protect their prestige. Once the Pan clan takes action, Massacre Shrine will definitely be annihilated. The Pan clan will either not take action or defend their overlord position and prestige. Young Master Pan Ning. Young Lady Yang waited for Pan Ning to rush over and threw herself into his arms. Her pretty face was filled with a pitiful expression as she wept. "This man molested me. We couldn't do anything in the city, but after we came out, he killed a few of our men. If you were any later, I would not be able to see you again." Sob, sob, sob. Young Master Pan Ning, you must help me. Originally, young Lady Yang did not fancy Pan Ning as he was not an important young master in the Pan clan. She wanted to hook up with the dozens of young masters of the Pan clan. It is a pity that they did not fancy her. Pan Ning had chased after her for a long time, and she had always been aloof. Now that she had pounced into Pan Ning's embrace, Pan Ning was extremely excited and also furious. Pan Ning chased after young Lady Yang not only because of her beauty. More importantly, young Lady Yang's father was the palace master of the Heaven Cold Palace. If he could win over young Lady Yang, he would have a powerful external aid, and his status in the Pan clan would rise us. How could he miss such a good opportunity to perform? He shouted, "Take him down first. If he dares to resist, kill him." Swish, swish, the 7 warriors brought by Pan Ning flew over and surrounded Lu Li. 2 mighty warriors from the divinity took out their weapons and were ready to take action. "Wait!" Then Lu Li shouted. He didn't want to get into a conflict with the Pan family, unless it was absolutely necessary. After he stunned the 7 escorts, he stared at Pan Ning and said, "Young Master Pan, I know a young lady from your family. Do you want to make peace? It won't be good for anyone if things go sour." "You know a young lady?" Pan Ning sneered to himself. There were at least tens of thousands of young masters and young ladies in the Pan family. How dare Lu Li say that he only knew one young lady? What was more, the top young masters and young ladies of the Pan family were arrogant. They didn't even pay attention to the average super mighty warriors in the divinity. Who was Lu Li? Therefore, Pan Ning didn't waste time with Lu Li. He waved his hand and said, "Take him down." Buzz, Lu Li waved his hand. He made the first move. He slapped in all directions. Ripples spread out in space and enveloped the 3 mighty warriors in an instant. He didn't release the spatial twister. He just released a spatial fluctuation. Otherwise, these 3 deity worlds almighties would have been killed. Even so, the 3 mighty warriors in the divinity were shaking uncontrollably. Lu Li bellowed, "Don't make me kill you." "Ha ha ha." Pan Ning laughed. He could see Lu Li's concerns. He believed that nobody would dare to kill warriors of the Pan family unless that person was tired of living. Looking at Lu Li with provocation, Pan Ning said, "Go ahead. Do you have the guts?" "Commander Wang, why are you still standing there? Someone is trying to kill warriors of the Palace of Pan family." Commander Wang and the others had been watching from the distance. Pan Ning was just an average young master from a branch of the Pan family. They didn't plan to come and help. After all, they wouldn't get anything out of helping. If something went wrong, they would be scolded. Hearing Pan Ning's words, they had no other choice but to rush over. Otherwise, it would be bad for their reputation. For example, if warriors of the Pan family were not united and Pan Ning was bullied, they would turn a blind eye, surround him. Commander Wong waved his hand. Hundreds of warriors came over. Glaring at Lu Li, Commander Wong said, "My friend, I suggest you surrender. Otherwise, nobody can save you." Commander Wong. The warriors on duty the day before were worried. Lu Li had the token of Pan family. They walked over to Commander Wong. One of them said anxiously, "Don't act rashly before we get to the bottom of the matter. He is not a simple man." Lu Li didn't take out the token of Pan family. It was not easy for the warriors to point it out. Commander Wong raised his eyebrows. He looked at that warrior with doubt. If he was not a simple man, why didn't he tell them his real identity? He was so sneaky. Could it be that he had something to do with Lu Li? "Commander Wong," Pan Ning shouted angrily. "What are you waiting for? This man is attacking the escorts of the Pan family. He is making an enemy out of the Pan family. If you continue to do this, I will go to my 6th granduncle to complain about you." Commander Wong was losing patience. Pan Ning's complaint might not work. But Pan Ning's 6th granduncle was the chief of the Division of Internal Affairs. If the Chief of Internal Affairs had a bad impression, Commander Wong would have a hard time in the future. "Take him down," Commander Wong shouted, clenching his teeth. Lu Li was just a small fry. So what if he took him down? How could he defy the heavens? At the southwest of the land of Yuyan, the Pan family was never afraid of anyone. "Don't take him down. Just kill him and chop him into pieces." Lady Yang was afraid that a long delay would bring trouble. She shouted angrily. Commander Wong was powerful, and there were so many warriors. How could Lu Li fight one against 1,000? Commander Wong glanced at young Lady Yang, then at Pan Ning. He gritted his teeth and shouted again, "Kill him! Charge!" Hundreds of warriors bellowed and formed into a formation. With horrifying momentum, they charged toward Lu Li like tens of thousands of horses galloping. Almost at the same time, Commander Wong made his move as well. He leaped up like a ferocious lion. A huge saber appeared in his hand. With a glaring glare, he hacked at Lu Li. "You have forced me to do this." Lu Li was ready to throw caution to the wind. Worst came to worst, he would kill these warriors. He would go back to the Kunlun Mountain as soon as possible and then run away with Qi Shi'er. As long as he was out of the sphere of influence of the Pan family wouldn't go after him in person. "Wong, you are out of your mind. Stop." Right at that moment, there came a shout of anger from the city gate. The 2 warriors that were on duty yesterday were overjoyed. Commander, he had arrived at the critical moment. Otherwise, they would be in big trouble. Commander Wong heard Commander He's thunderous shout. He stopped on the spot. The other warriors that were about to make their way stopped on the way. Lu Li stopped as well. He put on a forced smile. He could have taken out the token given by Pan Yuqin, and he should have been able to intimidate these warriors. But he didn't take it out because he didn't want to rely on a woman to survive. He didn't even mention Pan Yuqin's name. He just wanted to make peace. He didn't want to rely on Pan Yuqin's identity to intimidate these warriors. He felt it was shameful for a man to rely on a woman. Chapter 1445. Commander, he was taken aback. Lu Li had the token of King Pan. Of the entire southwest region, only 30 people had the token. Those who could have the token of King Pan were either related to King Pan or someone close to him. Otherwise, Lu Li would not have the token. Snatching the token of King Pan, not even supreme warriors in the divinity had the guts, let alone Lu Li. That would be the biggest provocation to King Pan. Therefore, when Commander he saw that Pan Ning, a disciple of a branch family, wanted to kill Lu Li, he was frightened. If Lu Li was killed, the consequences would be disastrous. Commander, he enjoyed high prestige among the commanders. Commander Wong was surprised to see that Commander, he was so upset. Could it be that Lu Li really had a powerful background? Commander, he rushed over. He was relieved to see that Lu Li was fine. Without any hesitation, he Jiwen got down on one knee and shouted, "Greetings, Lord. I am late and have disturbed you. Please forgive me." Pan Ning, Lady Yang, and Commander Wong were stunned. What was wrong with Commander He? He was kneeling to Lu Li. Commander, he didn't have to kneel to Pan Ning. The onlookers were stunned. They had thought that when Pan Ning and the others arrived, Lu Li would die for sure. After all, few in history could survive those who went against the Pan family. They didn't expect that the tables would turn. Commander Wong of the Pan family was kneeling to Lu Li. Seeing that Commander Wong and the other warriors didn't move, Commander He winked at them and said in a low voice, "What are you waiting for? Come and pay your respects to our Lord. Please forgive us. Our Lord has the token of King Pan." What? Commander Wong and the others were frightened. Their legs became weak and they trembled. Commander Wong thought that Commander He would not lie about such an important matter. He made up his mind, dropped to his knees, and said, "I did not know who you are. I have offended you. I am guilty of the death penalty." Plop, plop. Since the two commanders were on their knees, the other warriors followed suit and shouted, "We are guilty of the death penalty." Token of King Pan? Pan Ning felt that the heavens were playing a very big joke on him. He was a descendant of the Pan clan, so he knew very well about the Pan King medallion. The bloodline of the Pan King had existed in the land of Yuyin for millions of years. There had been many Pan Kings, but there were only 30 tokens of the Pan King. From this, one could see just how precious this token was. Those who possessed the Pan King medallion not only had a unique status, becoming the most respected guest of the Pan clan, but they also had many special privileges. To a certain extent, they would receive the protection of the Pan King residence. Now, he actually wanted to kill an esteemed guest who possessed the Pan King token. If this matter were to spread to the clan, his status as a young master would probably be revoked, right? At that time, he would be reduced to an ordinary disciple of the Pan family, unable to raise his head for the rest of his life. If the clan were to punish him severely, he might spend the rest of his life in prison. No, Pan Ning very quickly came to a realization. A look of mockery appeared in his eyes. The Pan King token was so noble. How could anyone possess it? As far as Pan Ning knew, those who possessed Lord Pan's medallion were all supreme experts or upper echelon members of the Pan clan. Lu Li's chi and energy were so weak, and he was not a young master from a famous family. Where did he get the Pan King token? Pan Ning knew almost all the young masters from wealthy families in the southwest. Even if Lu Li was wearing a mask, if he were a young master from a wealthy family, Pan Ning would recognize him. Pan Ning was certain that Lu Li was not from a superforce. What was more, Yang Liar was only the daughter of the master of the Palace of Heaven Frigid Palace, a high-rank force. If Lu Li's status was high, Yang Liar wouldn't dare to provoke him no matter how bold she was. Also, when Pan Ning came with his men, Lu Li didn't show the Pan King token and was about to kill the warriors of the Pan clan. If Lu Li was an esteemed guest of the Pan family, how could he kill the servants of his master? Based on this, Pan Ning came to a conclusion. The Pan King token on Lu Li was fake, or he got it by accident. Lu Li could not be the real owner of the Pan King token. On this thought, Pan Ning felt a bit more confident. After a pause, he said coldly, "Lord, can you please show us the Pan King token and let us have a look?" "What is the Pan King token?" Lu Li asked subconsciously. He didn't know about the Pan King token, so he was confused. He came to his senses quickly. The token Pan Yuqin gave him must be the Pan King token. Otherwise, Commander He and the others wouldn't be so scared. Lu Li's question made Pan Ning even more certain that Lu Li's Pan King token was fake, or he picked it up. Commander He and the others were surprised as well. Lu Li had the Pan King token, but he didn't know the origin of the token. Buzzing, the interspatial ring on Lu Li's hand glowed as a beautiful token appeared in his hand. He waved the token and asked, "Is this it?" "This?" Pan Ning was stunned. He stared at the word Pan on the token. The word seemed to have some magic power. There was something special about it that made people feel this token was extraordinary. "It is real." Pan Ning had never seen the Pan King token before, but he could tell at a glance that it was real. That being said, Lu Li didn't know the Pan King token, which made Pan Ning certain. Lu Li's Pan King token was of unknown origin. It was possible that Luli picked it up or obtained it through illegal means. In other words, Luli was not the real owner of the Pan King token. Pan Ning calmed down on this thought. He looked at Luli coldly and said, "Where did you get the Pan King token? Did Pan King give it to you or your ancestors?" Luli shook his head after some thoughts and said, "Pan King did not give it to me, nor did any Pan King give it to my ancestors." Before Luli could finish his words, Pan Ning said aggressively, "Then you didn't get the Pan King token through normal means? Did you pick it up somewhere? Or did you steal it?" Luli rolled his eyes. He didn't even want to explain. This idiot just wanted to give him a conclusion. Did he want Commander He and Commander Wong to kill him? Did he really think he was made of mud and could be killed at will? Luli didn't bother to answer. He stared at Pan Ning and said, "Young Master Pan Ning, right? If you want to kill me, just say it. I don't want to make trouble, but I'm not afraid." "Ha ha ha." Pan Ning laughed. Pointing at Luli, he said, "Did you hear that? The origin of his Pan King token is unknown, and I suspect that he stole it. Commander He, Commander Wong, take him down." Commander He and Commander Wong looked at each other, but they didn't move. If Luli got the Pan King token through normal means, they wouldn't even know how they died. "Are you deaf?" Seeing that the two didn't move, Pan Ning shouted angrily, "Take him down now. I will take full responsibility if anything happens." Commander He and Commander Wong still didn't move. Naturally, the other warriors didn't move either. Just as Pan Ning was about to lose his temper, a cold voice came. "Full responsibility? Pan Ning, you cannot take responsibility for this. Take Pan Ning down." Everyone looked back at the same time. When Commander He and Commander Wong saw a gray-haired old man walking over with some warriors, their expressions changed. They knelt down again and shouted, "Greetings, Patriarch 19. Patriarch 19. Chapter 1446. Take him down. The 19th elder looked at Pan Ning coldly and waved his hand. A few warriors dashed over and took Pan Ning down. Pan Ning didn't dare to say anything. He knelt on the ground, pale. He knew that his life was over. It would be hard for him to make a name for himself in the Pan family. The warriors with Pan Ning knelt on the ground as well. Their heads were down, and their faces were pale. Young Lyre had stopped crying, but she looked worse than crying. Should she kneel or not? What if Luli found out and killed her? Wouldn't the Pan Palace do anything? Plop! Young Lyre was scared. She knelt down in the end, afraid to say anything. She and her warriors knelt down as well. They were trembling and they were terrified. Luli didn't look at them. He looked at Yi Kai, who was behind Patriarch 19. The moment he saw Yi Kai, he understood everything. Pan Yuqin enjoyed a high status in the Pan Palace. She might be a disciple of the immediate family. Otherwise, she wouldn't have the Pan Palace token, and she wouldn't be able to invite a patriarch. Patriarch 19 looked at Luli, but didn't say anything. He just waved his hand and said, "Take him back." Patriarch 19 swaggered away with Pan Ning and the others, leaving Yi Kai alone. Commander He and the others were relieved. Patriarch 19 didn't hold them accountable. As long as Luli didn't do anything, the matter would be over. "Lord, Wong is as blind as a bat. Please execute him." Commander Wong was smart. He kowtowed to Luli and asked for execution directly. He was making concessions in order to advance. The other warriors bowed as well. Young Lyre's lips trembled. She said, "Lord, I am blind. I am a snob. Please spare me." Luli stood there calmly. There was no emotion in his eyes. Pan Ning was taken away. Luli was not as angry as before. What was more, he wasn't hurt. Instead, he killed several warriors of the Heaven Frigid Palace. Luli waved his hand and said, "Commander He, Commander Wong, this is all a misunderstanding. We can explain it. Please rise." "Thank you, Lord." Commander He and Commander Wong were relieved. They bowed and stood up. Luli waved his hand and said, "You can go now." Commander He and Commander Wong cupped their hands and retreated. They led the soldiers away. Young Lyre and her guards didn't dare to stand up. Young Lyre's body trembled as she knelt on the ground. Her voluptuous breasts trembled as well. She looked pitiful. Manager Yi, thank you for your trouble. Luli didn't look at Yang Liar and the others. He didn't try to kill them either. Killing Yang Liar would make him an enemy of the Heaven Frigid Palace. It was originally caused by a small matter, and he didn't want to pursue it further. Young Master Lu, please. Yi Kai understood what Luli meant. He made a gesture to invite Luli to leave. Luli nodded and left with Yi Kai coldly. From the beginning to the end, he never looked at Yang Liar again. Whoosh whoosh, after Luli left, Yang Liar sat down on the ground and breathed heavily. She felt like she had just passed by the gates of hell. But soon, she became angry out of shame. Luli didn't even look at her or say anything. She felt she was despised. She felt she was like an ant that Luli didn't even bother to step on to death. You with the surname Lu, just you wait. Yang Liar looked at Lu Li's back. She gritted her teeth and murmured to herself, one day, I will get back at you for what you have done today. I will make you pay 100 times or 1,000 times more. Who is he? There were fewer warriors around. Many people didn't dare to stay, and some went into hiding. But there was one question on everyone's mind. Who was Lu Li? Even Patriarch 19 had come out. It meant that Lu Li's King Pan token was obtained through normal channels, and it was effective. But wasn't Lu Li's power too weak? Moreover, he was a nobody. Almost everyone in the southwest of the land of Yuyan had heard of and seen many famous people. The news was spread across the King Pan city through these people. Soon, people in the city began to discuss. After all, what happened today was too mysterious. What was more important was the existence of King Pan token. Lu Li had entered the King Pan hall. Yi Kai took him to a side chamber where Pan Yuqin was sitting. Pan Yuqin didn't cover her face. There was a gentle smile on her pretty face. Lu Li felt at peace when he saw her. The girl's unique chi and energy could always make people feel peaceful and comfortable. You are here. Pan Yuqin stood up, but didn't walk over. She just nodded. Lu Li took off his mask and said with a smile, I am here. Sit down, Pan Yuqin said casually. Lu Li sat down casually. Then Pan Yuqin picked up a goblet of wine and said, I apologize to you on behalf of Pan Ning. Ha ha ha. Lu Li laughed, shook his head and said, It is just a small matter. You don't have to be so formal. Also, Lady Qin, you're not being kind. Clearly, Pan Yuqin was a smart girl. She figured out what Lu Li was implying. She giggled and said, I have always thought that relying on the family's prestige is nothing. Young Master Lu, you are the real hero who can make a name for yourself. Relying on the family's prestige to act like a tyrant is something that only people with bad taste would do. Young Master Lu, you are friends with me because of me, not because of my identity, right? You have a sharp tongue. Lu Li shook his head with a bitter smile. He didn't want to bicker with Pan Yuqin. His interspatial ring glowed as he took out the token of King Pan, put on the table, and said, This is too valuable and it is not legitimate. At first, I thought it was just a messaging jade talisman, so I can't take it. Well, I'm not used to living off a woman, and I'm not a gigolo. Ha, ha, Pan Yuqin said with a naughty smile. You are not living off a woman. Also, I cannot afford a mighty warrior like you. Before she finished her words, Pan Yuqin felt something was wrong. She sounded like she was trying to be Lu Li's sugar daddy. Ha ha ha. Lu Li laughed. He had gained the upper hand in a verbal argument. He said with a smile, If it is someone else who wants to be my sugar daddy, I will say no. But if it is Lady Qin, I can think about it. Pan Yuqin blushed even more. She rolled her eyes at Lu Li and put on a flirtatious look. Then she said seriously, Young Master Lu, I am giving you the token of King Pan on behalf of King Pan. Given your identity, prestige, and what you have done, you are worthy enough to be a distinguished guest of the palace of King Pan. You deserve to have the token of King Pan. If you're not satisfied, I can ask King Pan, and he will give it to you in person. No. Lu Li waved his hand. If he were to be received by King Pan, his identity would be known to the entire Yuyan land. Things had gotten out of hand. He was worried that his identity would be exposed. This girl can give me the token of King Pan on behalf of King Pan. Is she his daughter or granddaughter? Chapter 1447. Thanks to Pan Yu-chen's intervention, the matter was settled. Many people were wondering about Lu Li's identity. However, he was wearing a mask, and he had just arrived at the Yuyan land. Therefore, nobody knew. Not many people at the Yuyan land knew about the divinity. Only some super forces or those who happened to be at the divinity during that period of time knew. Therefore, nobody thought of Lu Li, and many didn't know who he was. That was because the token of Lord Pan could not be given out easily. Many people thought that Lu Li was a descendant of a powerful warrior, and he had the token of Lord Pan. If they went after Lu Li based on this information, they would get nothing. Lu Li didn't ask about Pan Yu-chen's steel because he already had the low-level ones. He could not afford the expensive ones. If Pan Yu-chen gave him too low of a discount, he would feel sorry for himself. Young Master Lu, did you go to the Yuyan Palace? He didn't mention it, but Pan Yu-chen did. Lu Li felt embarrassed. The Lord Pan Palace had everything. Lu Li didn't do business with the Lord Pan Palace, but went to the Yuyan Palace. In this case, Lu Li was not a good friend. Before Lu Li could figure out what to say, Pan Yu-chen said with a smile, "Don't get me wrong. I know you don't want to take advantage of us. You have your pride, and I can understand that. How about this? Come to the Lord Pan Palace again, and I will give you a 10% discount. In this way, we can still make some money. Usually, we can get a 20 to 30% profit." In this way, Lu Li didn't feel so embarrassed. He nodded to Pan Yu-chen. Not only was this girl smart, but she was also considerate. Lu Li wondered who was lucky enough to marry her. He couldn't help but exclaim, "In the north, there is a beauty, peerless and independent. One look can bring down a city, another can bring down a kingdom. This poem from my hometown is about you. Lady Chen, you are one of the most outstanding girls I have ever met." Pan Yu-chen blushed at Lu Li's compliment. She was embarrassed. Her eyelashes trembled. After a moment, she couldn't help but ask, "One of? Young Master Lu, you must have many female friends. Which one do you think is the most outstanding? What kind of person?" The most outstanding? Lu Li was stunned. A beautiful face came to his mind automatically. A trace of loneliness and longing appeared on his face. After the time for one incense stick to burn, Lu Li sighed and said, "The perfect goddess in my mind is my sister. She was kind and gentle. She was as beautiful as a fairy and had unparalleled wisdom. She was cruel and merciless to her enemies. She was also cruel to herself. She once cut off her own thigh and ate it raw." Pan Yu-chen's expression changed as she listened. Her pretty face was filled with shock and disbelief. A blurry image of a beautiful woman appeared in her mind. When Lu Li lowered his head and said nothing more, she asked in a weak voice, "Young Master Lu, your sister is missing." Lu Li forced a smile. "She is from the divinity. Actually, my father adopted her. She is not my sister. I suspect that she was brought back to the god world by her family." "Oh," Pan Yu-chen breathed a sigh of relief. If it was just missing, there would always be a chance to find it. She frowned and said, "Young Master Lu, can you tell me about your sister's story? Why did she cut off her own thigh and eat it raw?" Looking into Pan Yu-chen's curious eyes, Lu Li thought about it and said, "Because my sister and I grew up in the same tribe. My father was trapped in a dangerous place. My mother passed away, and so did my grandpa. We only had each other to depend on. That year, Lu Li's words opened the floodgates. Maybe he needed someone to talk to relieve his stress and longing." There was no doubt that Pan Yu-chen was a good listener. It took her an hour to finish the story. Pan Yu-chen listened quietly. After a long time, she exclaimed, "Your sister is really an amazing woman." "Yes." Lu Li exhaled. Looking at Pan Yu-chen, he said, "Thank you for listening. I feel much better now." "Young Master Lu, don't be discouraged." Pan Yu-chen comforted him. "One day, you will meet your sister again. I believe that God will not be so cruel. Your sister will find a way to find you." "Yes." Lu Li nodded and stood up. His eyes glowed, and he was determined. "One day, I will kill my way back to the divinity, defeat the 4 legendary forces, and find my sister." Lu Li nodded and said with determination, "If it were someone else, Pan Yuqin would have laughed it off. However, looking at the glow on Lu Li's face and the determination in his eyes, she somehow had a strong confidence in Lu Li. She also stood up, and her aura spread out from her body. She said in a low voice, "Count me in. Our Pan family was a famous family in the God realm. It was because we were harmed by the 4 super forces that we had no choice but to come to the land of Yuyan. Disciples of the Pan family have sworn since we were young that we will spend our entire lives to strengthen our family and ourselves. Then we can kill our way back to the divinity. This is the dream of every disciple of the Pan family." What? Lu Li suddenly noticed that the energy from Pan Yuqin was powerful. It was just a flash, but it made him feel alarmed. At that moment, he felt that Pan Yuqin was not an average immortal. Instead, she was like a mighty warrior in the divinity, even comparable to a super mighty warrior. This girl has some special artifact to hide her energy? Lu Li had some doubts. Thinking of Pan Yuqin's extraordinary status, he was even more certain of it. But since Pan Yuqin did not want to say, he would not ask. "Let's not talk about this first." Lu Li shook his head. He picked up the goblet and took a sip. He took out an interspatial ring, handed it to Pan Yuqin, and said, "There are 1 billion divine sources in here. See what kind of materials you can buy. I want the warriors of the Massacre Shrine to quickly increase their fighting strength." Lu Li did not hide the fact that he was staying in the Massacre Shrine. It was too easy for Pan Yuqin to find out. There was no point in hiding it. "Go and invite Yi Kai over." Pan Yuqin waved her hand to the maids outside the door. After some thoughts, she said the Massacre Shrine is too small. Even if you can increase their fighting strength by 10 times or 100 times, there will not be much development. If you want to join a major force, I can recommend you. There will definitely be a position for you as an elder. Pan Yuqin's words were vague, but her meaning was clear. If Lu Li wanted to join the Pan King's residence, Pan Yuqin could guarantee him a position as an elder of the Pan King's residence. In the southwest of the land of Yuyan, he would be able to call the wind and summon the rain. Even in the land of Yuyan, nobody would dare to have any ideas on Lu Li. After all, the Pan King was one of the 9 overlords. If it were in the past, Lu Li would not even consider and would agree immediately. After all, with Pan Yuqin here, he would not be ostracized in the Pan King's residence. But now, he did not want to join any other force. He had a feeling of home in the Kunlun Mountain. It was not his principle to abandon a group of people and join other forces. Furthermore, the craftsman sect made him feel the heartlessness of the major forces. Therefore, he had some resistance towards the major forces. Therefore, he forced a smile and said, "When there comes a day when I cannot stay here anymore, I will come and ask Lady Qin for a recommendation." Okay. Chapter 1448. With 1 billion divine sources, Lu Li bought many materials, pellets, skills, relic armors, treasures, soul-nurturing pellets, and so on. 1 billion divine sources for 10 interspatial rings. With these materials and skills, warriors of the Massacre Shrine wouldn't be able to use them all in decades. Lu Li left. When he left, the golem mask changed into a grimace. At the same time, the dragon armor appeared over his body. He had become another person. Those who were not familiar with his breath of life would not be able to recognize him. He left through another gate in a low-key manner. Then, he went into stealth mode and rushed toward the Kunlun Mountain. After traveling for 3,000 miles, Lu Li came back. He checked several times to make sure that nobody was following him. Then he went on his way. 3 days later, the news about Lu Li died down at the King Pan City. Many people could not figure out Lu Li's identity. So, it was a mystery. Recently, the Hall of Yuyan had started to auction the treasures from the Valley of Ghosts. It was said that there was a supreme steal. Many people in the King Pan City were attracted to this auction. Another 8 days passed. A phoenix chariot came from outside the King Pan City. In the chariot sat 7 or 8 people. When they flew down, Commander He, who was on duty at the gate, smiled and went to greet them. "Greetings, Master Yuan, Patriarch Yuan, and all the patriarchs." Commander, he saluted because it was Yuan Yu, the master of the heaven-breaking palace. Yuan Yu seemed to be related to some patriarchs of the King Pan Palace. Commander, he did not dare to offend her. Yuan Yu was not in a good mood, and there was not a hint of a smile on his face. He looked at Yuan Shangchang, and the latter immediately pulled Commander He to the side and said, "Commander He, have you seen the white-haired young man I brought into the city the other day? The one wearing a silver mask." "It is him." Commander He was startled. He nodded and said, "A few days ago, he came to King Pan City and almost caused a huge commotion." "What?" Yuan Yu's face turned cold. She walked over and said, "Commander He, do you know where he is now? Is he in the city? If he is in the city, take him down for me. I will reward you handsomely." "Take him down?" Commander He trembled. He thought he had heard it wrong. He widened his eyes and asked, "Are you sure you want to take him down?" Yuan Yu was somewhat baffled. She coldly nodded and said, "What's wrong? Is there a problem? Not only will I capture him, I will also skin him alive and pull out his tendons. Only then will I be able to resolve the hatred in my heart." Yuan Shangchang also chimed in. "This person has committed countless crimes, and he dares to provoke the heaven-crushing palace. If we don't kill this person, the heaven-crushing palace will not rest. Never give up." Commander He rubbed his nose embarrassedly and said in a strange tone, "This time, you can't do anything even if you want to. You can't touch this person. Your heaven-crushing palace won't be able to bear the consequences of doing so." "What?" Yuan Yu and Yuan Shangchang looked at each other in shock. They thought that Commander He was joking with them. Luli was just a leader of a middle-rank force. His comprehensive abilities could only be compared to a mighty warrior in the divinity. Even the heaven-crushing palace couldn't bear the consequences of Commander He's persuasion. After confirming that Commander He wasn't joking, Yuan Yu sneered. "Is that so? Commander He, why don't you tell us what is so special about this person, or what powerful backer he has that even the heaven-crushing palace can't afford to offend?" "Ha! Ha!" Commander He sneered. Pointing to the King Pan City, he said, "This person's backer is in the city. Can you afford to offend him?" "What?" Yuan Yu, Yuan Shangchang, and the other commanders were taken aback. Yuan Shangchang asked, "Which patriarch wants to protect him? That can't be. He is just a nobody. Why would a patriarch want to protect him? Is it because of the Dragon Heaven Lock formation? That doesn't make sense." The King Pan City had a formation that was more powerful than the Dragon Heaven Lock formation. Therefore, Yuan Shangchang couldn't figure out why an important person from the King Pan's mansion would want to protect Luli. "Patriarch?" Commander He snorted and said, "I won't go into details. I will only tell you one thing. Several days ago, that young man had a conflict with Yang Lier, the eldest young lady of the Heaven Frigid Palace. Later, young Master Pan Ning came out to help Yang Lier. Now young Master Pan Ning has been grounded for 1,000 years. This person you cannot afford to offend." "What?" Yuan Yu, Yuan Shangchang, and the other patriarchs were stunned. Luli had defeated a young master of the Pan family? Did Luli really have a powerful background? Yuan Yu thought about it and winked at Yuan Shangchang. The latter's interspatial ring glowed, and then she shook it on Commander He's arm. Her breasts were squeezed out of shape. Yuan Shangchang secretly handed over an interspatial ring and said in a sweet voice, "Commander He, tell us the truth. What's that man's background?" Commander He put away the interspatial ring quietly. He used psychic power to check and found that there were 10 million divine sources in it. He calmed down. After a moment of hesitation, he said in a low voice, "He has the token of King Pan, and it is genuine." Pan Ning offended him and was taken away by Patriarch 18 and locked up. If you don't believe me, you can go into the city and ask around. Many people in the city know about this. Token of King Pan. Yuan Yu and the rest turned pale. Yuan Yu and Yuan Shangchang's eyes were filled with disbelief. Luli was just a leader of small force. How could he have the token of King Pan? That was unbelievable. Commander He had gone back to the city gate. Yuan Yu and the others were still in a daze. After the time for one incense stick to burn, Yuan Yu waved her hand and said, "Let's go in." They entered the city quickly and began to ask around. As it turned out, many people in the city knew about this. Almost everyone knew that Luli had the token of King Pan. Bang! In one of the castles, Yuan Yu smashed a table with her palm after receiving confirmation of the news. Her face was filled with rage. She felt a deep sense of humiliation, as well as endless grievances. They had given Lu Li 3 billion divine sources for helping them build the formation. This was a normal deal, but she felt she had been tricked by Lu Li or humiliated by Lu Li. However, she could not vent her anger. She had to keep it to herself and let it be a shame for the rest of her life. She thought of the two sisters standing outside the palace, waiting for Lu Li's favor. She felt even more humiliated. If Lu Li had tricked them, it would have been fine. But he didn't. He was playing them like monkeys. "Master, please don't be angry." Yuan Shanchong sighed. She adjusted herself quickly. Lu Li was not someone they could afford to offend. Since that was the case, it was okay to suffer some grievances. She looked at Yuan Yu, whose face was twisted, and said, "Forget it, Master. We really cannot afford to offend this man." Cannot afford to offend him? Chapter 1449. On the southern cliff of Kunlun Mountain, Qi Shi was cultivating by herself. Ever since Lu Li left, she had been cultivating here for the past few months. After she finished cultivating, she would sit there in a daze and look into the distance. Zhao Shi, Chen Yu, and the rest tried to persuade her many times and even sent people to watch her secretly, afraid that she would do something stupid and jump off the cliff. Even though she might not die from the fall, they were still worried. Qi Shi had a few friends that played well. They would often come over to visit her, but they were all dismissed by Qi Shi. She just wanted to sit here by herself and wait for Lu Li to come back. Zhao Shi and the rest could understand Qi Shi's feelings. In fact, Zhao Shi and the rest have been feeling uneasy for the past few months. They felt that they had lost their backbone. All the warriors of Massacre Shrine were uneasy and unstable. Lu Li didn't appear often in Massacre Shrine, but everyone knew that he was at Kunlun Mountain. As long as he was there, they would be at ease. Now that Lu Li had left for several months without any news, many people couldn't help but let their imaginations run wild. Did Lu Li not want them anymore? Was he trapped? Was he dead? If an army didn't have a commander, then there would be no cohesiveness and no powerful fighting strength. If a force didn't have a leader, they would feel that there was no one to steer the ship. They would feel uneasy and worried that the force would be destroyed at any moment, especially when Lu Li was deeply loved by the disciples. Where could they find a leader who could provide them with unlimited cultivation materials? Where could they find a leader who could build formations and defeat super mighty warriors in the divinity? Therefore, many patrolling warriors were like Qi Shi and would look into the distance from time to time, hoping for Lu Li's return. Today, a team of patrolling warriors were patrolling at the foot of the mountain. Suddenly, the space in front of them trembled. Then a warrior covered in silver armor and a ghost mask appeared in midair. "Someone is here." A group of people became alert. Seeing that person getting closer, one of the warriors even released a signal to alert the nearby patrolling warriors. Sitting on the southern cliff, Qi Shi was startled awake. She looked into the distance and saw a blurry figure walking over. She rubbed her eyes, and a look of joy appeared on her face. She suddenly stood up and shouted, "Uncle Shi!" Whoosh, whoosh, Zhao Shi, Chen Yu, and the others were alarmed. They soared into the air and flew over. When they saw the approaching shadow, they saw that the person had taken off his mask and revealed his true appearance. Zhao Shi was immediately overjoyed. He shouted, "Everyone, come out and welcome the return of the Home Master." Whoosh, 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 countless cultivators flew out from the various castles and manors. Many of them revealed looks of ecstasy. However, there was no chaos. They only looked down the mountain in surprise. "Welcome, Home Master." The patrolling warriors recognized Lu Li. They all dropped to one knee and shouted in excitement. Luli stood at the foot of the mountain and looked at Chi Shi, who was on the cliff. He saw that Chi Shi was in tears, and Zhao Shi and the others were overjoyed. Luli exclaimed, "It is so good to be home." Buzz, Luli poured out divine energy to shut down the formation of dragons. He flew up and flew toward the mountain. Xiao, Chi Shi could not wait any longer. She leaped up and met up with Luli. She threw herself into his arms. Woo-woo, woo-woo, Chi Shi tried her best to control her emotions, but she was still crying. She grabbed Luli like an octopus and would not let go. She was trembling. "Sure, don't cry. I'm back." Luli ran back with Chi Shi in his arms and comforted her along the way. When they were at the top of the mountain, Luli continued, "There are so many people watching. Don't make a fool of yourself." Chi Shi jumped down from Luli's arms, but she was still holding on to Luli's arm. Luli patted her head and wiped her tears. Then he looked to the front. Plop! The more than 3,000 people dropped to one knee, put one hand on the ground, bowed and shouted, "Welcome, home master." Thousands of people shouted at the same time. Their voices shook heaven and earth. Many of them could not suppress their excitement and happiness. Luli looked at the joyful faces. He felt it was worthwhile to turn down Pan Yuqin's invitation. "Brothers, please rise," Luli shouted calmly. Then he waved his hand and said, "Zhao Shi, arrange a banquet. I want to drink 300 goblets with you." Ha ha ha. Zhao Shi and the others stood up and laughed. Zhao Shi waved his hand and said, "What are you standing there for? Go and arrange it. It is rare that Grandmaster is in such a good mood to drink with you. You must seize this chance." The thousands of warriors dispersed, and their leaders began to make arrangements. Soon, tables were set up on the plaza. Delicious food was piled up on the tables. In just 2 hours, everything was ready. Luli was in a good mood. He chatted with Chi Shi for a while, and then went out to eat and drink with the others. He said he would drink 300 goblets, but he drank so much that he passed out on the table. There were more than 3,000 people. Every one of them toasted more than 3,000 goblets. Even though Luli only touched his lips, no one could tell how much he had drunk. But Luli didn't use divine energy to force the wine out. He passed out on the table, which made all the warriors exclaim. Grandmaster was a real man. He treated his own people well. After a good sleep, Luli woke up to find Chi Shi next to him. She was clinging to him like a kitten. There was a gentle smile on her face, and she looked peaceful. Luli looked at her with a smile. He was filled with tenderness. This little girl could always touch the softest part of a man's heart. Luli truly saw her as his sister. Anyone who wanted to hurt Chi Shi must be killed. Luli let go of Chi Shi's hand. This girl must not have slept well recently. She didn't wake up. Luli walked out and called Zhao Shi and the others over. He threw the interspatial ring to them and said, "There are many materials, elixirs, skills, resources, weapons, and armors in here. Make good use of them. I don't ask for much. I just want all the warriors in the hall to improve to a higher level in a couple of years. We will strive to become a super force in 5 years." Zhao Shi and the others used psychic power to check. They were all shocked. Luli was being generous this time. There were so many materials in there. Even if Luli could squander them, they wouldn't have to worry about the materials for decades. More importantly, how could Luli just give them materials and treasures worth 1 billion just like that? How much trust was this? How generous was this? Zhao Shi and Chenyu looked at each other, dropped to one knee, and said, "We are willing to die for Grandmaster." Buzzing. Luli's interspatial ring glowed as the monument came out. He took a look and said, "There's another one here. I will play with it for a while and put it in the hall later. Everyone can come and study it." Monument. Chapter 1450. Zhao Shi spread the word that Luli had brought back a large number of materials and distributed some relic weapons, armors, and materials. The entire massacre shrine is in an uproar. It was especially so for the martial artists who had joined later. They had seen Lu Li's attitude toward his own people with their own eyes. Such a boss was really hard to find in the entire world of talents. Zhao, she spread the word that as long as one cultivated diligently, as long as one's strength could increase rapidly, he would be able to obtain an unlimited supply of divine materials. These words ignite the passion of all of the gang members to cultivate. This cultivation is not for Massacre Shrine, but for their own strength. Lu Li helped them improve their abilities for free. He didn't ask for much. He just wanted their loyalty and loyalty. Humans have feelings, even though many deities' feelings have faded over the long years. However, they had to admit that Lu Li was the best leader they had ever met. Lu Li was in closed-door cultivation, so he didn't worry about Qi Shi. But he arranged one thing for Qi Shi to play with Little White. Little White had already woken up. Its body was extremely good, and its aura seemed to have become much stronger. After eating over 100 cloud crystals, its body had improved by quite a bit. Little White wanted to be closer to Lu Li, but it stopped after Lu Li said a few words. As for Qi Shi, it didn't dislike her. This little girl was kind and gentle. Anyone would like her. Xiaobai quickly became familiar with her. Qi Shi took Little White and ran all over Kunlun Mountain. Little White had been asleep for so long. Once it came out, it was like a wild horse out of control. Lu Li's closed-door cultivation was not to study the space twist, but to study the monument. He wanted to comprehend the true intent contained within the divine monument. If the 6 true intents were all relatively strong, he would comprehend them all. The monument was placed in the castle. Lu Li sat in front of the monument with his legs crossed. He read it carefully, one word at a time. His mind was at peace as he immersed himself in the words. Very soon his heart was touched. He stopped watching and followed that touch to comprehend. Several hours later, Lu Li shook his head and stopped. He could roughly understand the direction of this true intent. He felt that it was just an ordinary fire attribute true intent and wasn't particularly strong. It was similar to the wind attribute true intent that he had comprehended previously. The more true intents he comprehended, the more true intents he would be able to fuse to form an even stronger true intent. However, fusing them would be very troublesome. Also, it was difficult to integrate fundamental meanings of different attributes. Therefore, Lu Li preferred to learn the stronger fundamental meanings directly. True meanings were similar to treasures. They were divided into low grade, middle grade, high grade, transcendent grade, and saint grade true meanings. The higher the grade of a true meaning, the greater its might. For example, the true meaning of the Slayer Emperor should be a saint grade true meaning, and it was rumored to be one of the 10 great true meanings of the deity world. It was a pity that the Slayer Emperor's true intent was self-created. It was almost impossible to reach the level of the Slayer Emperor in the past. Sha Di had experienced too many things before he created the true meaning of Sha Di. Without a similar experience as the Slayer, one would not be able to understand the essence of the Slayer's gist of true meaning. It would be extremely difficult to comprehend the Slayer's gist of true meaning to the great completion realm. It was because Lu Li had learned the Slayer's move and was used to high-level ones that he was not interested in low-level ones. If he wanted to raise his battle prowess quickly, he would have to think of ways to comprehend high-level true meanings and killing moves. For example, spatial twist. This kind of killing move was very powerful, and it could raise his overall battle prowess to the level of a deity world almighty expert. Lu Li gave up on the fire-related fundamental meaning. He continued to read, one fundamental meaning after another. Half a month later, Lu Li came out from cultivation. He was disappointed. The divine monument did indeed contain 6 true intent Tao presents, but it was a pity that they were all low-grade true intents. There were 2 fire elemental true intents, 2 water elemental true intents, 1 earth elemental true intent, and 1 light elemental true intent. Lu Li didn't think they were of much use to him. Instead, they would take up too much time, and he would have to learn them in different directions. If there were wind-related or space-related fundamental meanings, Lu Li wouldn't mind studying them. In this way, He could integrate them with the wind-related fundamental meaning to enhance the power of spatial twist. Zhao, Luli shouted as he walked out. Zhao rushed over. Pointing to the stele, Luli said, I will leave this stele to you. You four patriarchs can study the fundamental meanings and Taoist meanings in it. Later on, you can arrange for some loyal disciples to study it. Thank you, Grandmaster. Zhao was overjoyed. During this time, they had been improving in all aspects. The only thing they needed now was fundamental meanings. This stele was a timely help. With this stele, Zhao, the patriarchs, and many warriors in the hall could improve their abilities quickly. What about those who went to the Pan-King city to investigate? Did the patrolling warriors report anything? Luli asked about something else. The warriors of the Heavenly Palace should be here by now, right? How come they didn't show up after so long? Zhao answered, There's no news from the Pan-King city. The patrolling warriors didn't report anything special. The 6 forces are behaving themselves. Well, the Tiger Wolf Mountain has been taken over by a mighty warrior from the divinity. It has been renamed the Tiantai Mountain. Oh, I see. Luli didn't care about the 6 forces. He could deal with them easily. His mind was occupied with the Heavenly Palace. Could it be that the Heavenly Palace has gone to the Pan-King city and learned about me? Is that why they are afraid to come? Luli thought of a possibility. Last time, the Heavenly Palace had made such a big fuss that they could find out by asking around. Never mind. So what if they are here? Luli shook his head. He put the matter of the Heavenly Palace aside. The Heavenly Palace could not crack the Heavenlock formation anyway. They could do whatever they wanted. What is it? Luli asked with a frown, seeing that Zhao didn't go to collect the stele. Zhao summoned up his courage and said, Grandmaster, there's a valley of ghost kings tens of millions of miles to the northwest. It has been opened recently. It is said that many people have found treasures there, including a supreme stele. Do you think we should send someone there to try our luck? Valley of Ghost Kings? Supreme Stele. Luli was surprised. He had heard of this name before. The supreme stele of the Yuyan Palace must have come from the Valley of Ghost Kings. Tens of millions of miles. Luli didn't know that the Valley of Ghost Kings was so close to the Kunlun Mountain. It would be nice if he could fish in troubled waters and get a supreme stele. How is the situation at the Valley of Ghost Kings? Luli was cautious. His first concern was safety. Are there many powerful warriors there? How many forces are there? Many powerful warriors. Many, Zhao said bitterly. Apart from the Pan-King city, the other forces at the southwest have sent people. Right? Don't even think about the core area. There are mighty warriors and super mighty warriors in there. Anyone who dares to go in and snatch food from the tiger's mouth will be smashed to death. I want to send someone to wait outside. Sometimes treasures will fly out. If we're lucky, we can get something good. The treasures inside can fly out. Chapter 1451. The Ghost King Valley was very famous in the southwest, but Luli didn't know much about it. This was a peerless treasure ground. It was once the residence of a god king. This god king used to be the overlord of the southwest, but he was later replaced by the first Pan King. The Ghost King was killed, and the Ghost King clan was destroyed. However, many of the treasures accumulated by the Ghost King were stored in the Ghost King Valley. Before the Ghost King died, he had arranged a death seal. If a supermaster dared to force their way in, the inside would explode, and at that time, Ghost King Valley would cease to exist, and the supermaster who entered would be killed along with them. Therefore, the treasures and spirit materials that the Ghost King had accumulated over the years were all stored in the Ghost King Valley. Every once in a while, treasures would erupt from here. The major factions would always send people to guard this area. Once there was something good, it would be obtained by the major factions. Occasionally, some good things would fly out of the periphery and be obtained by the martial artists of the smaller factions. Of course, even if some small martial artists obtained a supreme treasure, if they were unlucky, they would be robbed in an instant and even killed. If he was lucky, he would be able to bring the treasures to Pan King City and sell them for a good price. Ghost King Valley also had some strange spirit arrays. It was said that there was a naturally existing, powerful soul barrier, and the closer one went to the central area, the more dangerous it became. Therefore, those who were not strong could not go to the core area. Ordinary warriors could only wander around outside and see if there was a meat pie falling from the sky. Zhao, she wanted to send someone to take a look around the periphery. What if they were lucky enough to obtain some treasures? It was very chaotic over there. The people on the periphery were basically there to pick up treasures, so there would be no fighting. Unless there was a treasure here and someone wanted to snatch it. After listening to Zhao Shi's speech, Lu Li was a bit tempted. The Ghost King Valley was extremely large and the terrain was complex. On top of that, there were many layers of fog that limited divine sense exploration. It was a good place to fish in troubled waters. Shall we go for a walk? Lu Li was a little hesitant. If it were just ordinary treasures, he wouldn't care so much, but the Ghost King Valley had a transcendent steel, which was very tempting to him. Right now, he urgently needed to increase his combat power. If he wanted to increase his combat power quickly, he could only comprehend high-grade true meanings. However, without the divine steel, it would take at least a few hundred years to comprehend the divine steel. Let's go take a look. Lu Li thought that with the wrath of the Thunder God, even if he encountered a powerful warrior from a major force, he would still stand a chance. He was only circling around the periphery. If he used the soul concealment armor, most people probably wouldn't be able to detect him, right? As long as he didn't expose his whereabouts, it would be very safe. I'm going to Ghost King Valley. Lu Li stood up abruptly. Zhao Shi was surprised. He waved his hand and said, Grandmaster, you cannot go. I will send someone. We cannot go to the central area anyway. How can we trouble you to go to the periphery in person? Zhao Shi regretted telling Lu Li about the Ghost King Valley if he knew this would happen. Lu Li is the backbone of Massacre Shrine. Ghost King Valley is so dangerous. If anything happens to Lu Li, Massacre Shrine will immediately collapse. You won't even get a single strand of hair. Lu Li waved his hand with determination. I have an armor that can make me invisible. Only super mighty warriors in the divinity will be able to see me. I will just stay on the periphery and will not go to the center. Give me a map of Ghost King Valley. Don't tell Shi'er about this. Just say I'm in retreat, lest she worry. I'll sneak away. If there's nothing good, I'll be back soon. All right. Zhao Shi sighed helplessly. Lu Li has always been an overbearing person. Once he decided to do something, he must not be disobeyed. Back then, when he agreed to be the Grandmaster, he had made a promise. If he angered Lu Li and left, how could Zhao Shi go to reason with him? Go and bring Lil White back. Find an excuse to let Shi'er cultivate and tell her not to play all the time. When Shi'er is in closed-door cultivation, I will sneak away. Lu Li thought about it and said, Little White had some strange abilities. Many inhibition formations were ineffective against it. Therefore, Lu Li wanted to bring Little White along. What if it was useful? Back then, Little White had helped him get a lot of treasures in many dangerous places. Zhao Shi went out. After an hour, he came back with Little White. Little White pounced into Lu Li's arms. Its speed was more than 10 times faster than before. Not bad. Lu Li nodded and said, If you eat some more cloud crystals, you might be able to break through to the divinity realm and become a divine beast. Squeak, squeak, Little White screamed in excitement and climbed onto Lu Li's shoulder. Lu Li turned to Zhao Shi, who nodded and said, Shi'er is in closed-door cultivation. Okay, I will go now. Don't alarm anyone. If anyone in the hall asks, just tell them that I am cultivating. Take care of Shi'er. I will be back soon. Lu Li put Little White into the wicked bead and activated the cloaking armor to sneak away. When he arrived at the Sky of Dragons formation, he poured out divine energy. The formation glowed and then vanished. Lu Li came out and poured out divine energy again. The formation was activated again. The formation only glowed twice, but some people were alarmed. But Zhao Shi covered it up. Nobody in the hall asked any more questions. Lu Li drifted away like a fox. He took out a map to study after he traveled for thousands of miles. Determining the direction of the Valley of Ghosts, he let Little White out. He stood on the spot and said to Little White, follow me. Don't wander around. Squeak, squeak. It was rare for Luli to take Little White out. Little White was excited. When Luli went invisible, Little White could vaguely sense his presence. Little White followed him cheerfully. A distance of tens of millions of miles was not a long journey for Luli. He didn't even ride on the beast of the void. He walked on foot, and it only took him one day to get here. He even slowed down on purpose in case he was discovered. Little White, you go in first. When they were close to the Valley of Ghosts, Luli did not let Little White wander around. There were too many people here, and Little White could cause trouble. Putting away Little White, Luli flew on like a gust of wind toward the Valley of Ghosts. 2 hours later, he arrived at a huge valley. Luli could tell from the distance that this was the Valley of Ghosts. In the distance, the valley was covered in thick fog. Several mountains rose up to the clouds from 3 directions. Luli could not see the top of the mountains. The valley was vast. Just the entrance to the valley was hundreds of miles wide. It was a testament to the size of the valley. Outside the valley, Luli saw some scouts hiding in some hidden places. He could tell that there were hundreds of them. They were in groups of 2 or 3. It seemed that over 100 forces had planted spies here. Into the valley, Luli observed for a while and then snuck into the valley quietly. As soon as he entered the valley, he found himself swallowed up by the fog. He used psychic power, but could only sense more than 1,000 feet. Clearly, there was something strange about the fog. Luli didn't dare to go in a straight line. He took a random path to the left and snuck in along the cliff. After the time for 1 incense stick to burn, he saw a forest in front of him. He saw people in the forest. What? Chapter 1452. It was normal for young Lyre to be here. She was on a trip to the Pan King city, trying to hook up with some young masters of the immediate Pan family. After what Luli had done, she was too ashamed to stay at the Pan King city. Her father was at the Valley of Ghosts, so naturally, she had come here. But her father was at the center of the Valley of Ghosts. Young Lyre could not go in and had to stay outside. She had more than 30 people with her, some from the Palace of Heaven and some from the other 2 forces. 2 young masters from the 2 forces were around young Lyre, trying to please her. But young Lyre was either in a bad mood or she didn't like the 2 young masters. She was talking to them in a low voice. Luli paid no more attention to her. She was just a spoiled girl. He had killed some from the Palace of Heaven. He had solved the problem. Therefore, Luli didn't want to pursue the matter. Otherwise, he could have killed her outside the Pan King city that day. Let's go. There were only 4 or 5 mighty warriors in the divinity. Luli didn't mind. He quietly went around the woods and walked into the distance. A couple of miles later, Luli found another small forest with dozens of people. He could hear them talking in a low voice from the distance. Let's go and listen. Luli walked over and hid nearby to eavesdrop, trying to get some information. How come it has been so long this time? Don't worry. The large-scale quietus wave is not here yet. Usually, there will be treasures after the quietus wave is here. Oh, last time, I saw a supreme relixor coming out, but it was snatched away by a big hand. I am so angry. Why are you angry? If you have the guts, go to the center. It will be easy to get the treasures there. But even if you can get the treasures, you won't be able to use them. Alas, the quietus wave is horrifying. The closer you are to the center, the more horrifying it will be. We'll have to wait at the edge. It is not just the quietus wave. There are so many powerful warriors in the center. If you dare to snatch food from the tiger's mouth, they will kill you in one move. Sigh. We've been here for so long this time, but so many of us have only managed to obtain a single transcendent grade god artifact. It would be great if we could enter the central region. All the good treasures have been intercepted by them. After listening for half an hour, Luli had some basic understanding of the situation of the Ghost King Valley. This valley had a natural soul attack called the Nirvana Soul Wave. The closer to the center, the more terrifying it would be. This group of people's souls weren't strong enough, so they could only stay in the outermost region. The treasures would erupt from time to time, but most of the treasures were intercepted and taken by the people in the central region. Occasionally, there would be fish that slipped through the net and were snatched and eaten by the people on the periphery. After some thoughts, Luli left quietly and moved forward along the cliffs in the valley. After the time for half an incense stick to burn, the space suddenly trembled. Even the fog could feel it. Luli stopped at once and squatted in the grass. Like a gust of wind, Luli felt the space tremble. But he noticed that there was some strange energy in his soul that was attacking his soul. Luli smiled gently. One of the reasons why he wanted to come here was that he was not afraid of average soul attacks. He had a dragon soul to protect his soul. Average soul attacks were nothing to him. He was right. The energy entered Li's sword-shaped soul. The silver dragon emerged outside and consumed all the energy. Luli didn't feel anything strange. Is this a large-scale nirvana soul wave? Luli blinked and looked into the depth of the valley to see if there were any treasures coming out. However, nothing happened after the time for one incense stick to burn. It seemed that the nirvana soul wave was only a small-scale one, not the prelude to the eruption of treasures. Luli was patient. He wandered on. After the time for one incense stick to burn, he saw another group of people. It seemed that the Ghost King Valley was crowded. He could run into people just by walking around. This group of people was also discussing in a low voice. Luli eavesdropped on them and got some more information. This time, he mainly learned about the powerful warriors in the central area. It was said that 3 holy level forces were here, but there were no supreme warriors from the divinity. It would be humiliating for supreme warriors from the divinity to come here to fight for treasures. At most, there would be some super mighty warriors from the divinity. More than half of the super warriors from the southwestern area were here. There were at least 50 super mighty warriors from the divinity at the central area and nearly 100 of the more powerful ones. More than 50 super mighty warriors from the divinity, 50 big shots that could shake the world with a stomp of their feet, were all here for the treasures in the Ghost King Valley. None from the Pan King Palace came. Generations of the Pan King family never came. It was said that when the Pan King died, he cast a vicious curse. Anyone from the Pan King family who dared to enter the valley would be punished by heaven. But it was also because the Pan King Palace didn't participate. Otherwise, the other families and forces wouldn't be involved. Once the Pan King Palace sealed off the valley, all the treasures would belong to the Pan King Palace. Who dared to come and take them? Buzzing, while Luli was pondering, a surge of spatial fluctuations spread out. This time, it was larger than before. Luli sensed a surge of powerful energy entering his soul. Treasures are erupting. Warriors hiding in the forest came out and looked around. Luli squatted in a bush. After making sure that the soul wave of silence did not affect him, he looked around as well. Psychic power could only reach a distance of more than 1,000 feet. His eyes could see more than 1,000 feet. Therefore, everyone had to use their eyes. Psychic power was not convenient. Whoosh, with some sharp noises, people nearby were excited. But soon, the noises died down. In the thick white haze, Luli could faintly see many hands whooshing up and stopping the treasures. Whoosh, in the end, only one piece of treasure came out. Luli's face darkened at a glance. It was a middle-grade relic spear. Clearly, all the treasures were taken by those in front. The spear was of a low level. Those inside didn't even bother to stop it. That was why they let it out. Otherwise, Li and the others wouldn't get a chance to take it. *T, another one. What bad luck. Don't bother. Let's go back. We won't get a chance to take the good stuff in the outer regions. Alas, let's wait. What if we are lucky? In the distance, those warriors were unwilling to give up. Some even cursed. A middle-grade relic spear was only worth a few divine sources. They didn't want it anymore. If I want something good, I must go to the center. Li's eyes flickered. After a while, he snuck toward the center with determination. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.